Huang Zixiao didn't reply immediately, instead his vision fell onto little Wang Cai, as a smile was revealed at the corners of his lips. TSK, this is actually the body of an infant phoenix. And just completed its first advancement. I think he seems to be at least a few thousand years old, and it's only now that he completed his first advancement. Isn't he a little slow in development? Little Wang Cai was instantly riled up and retorted, who are you saying is slow in development? Little master, I am so handsome and suave, so aggressive and formidable. He tried his best to hoot, but Huang Zixiao treated him like air as he continued talking, without minding anyone else. But, you're so young and already succeeded in contracting a phoenix, so you can be considered to be a top talent among our clan in God Realm, and that is extremely hard to come by. Even though this phoenix's development has flaws, but you are still considered as a top-rated genius in the clan. When Huang Yueli heard this, she was still unable to regain her senses. From Huang Zixiao's tone, contracting a phoenix didn't seem to be a universally shocking matter. He said it was hard to come by, so that meant that it wasn't one and only, but something which happened once in a while. But the phoenix was an authentic spiritual beast. To frequently contract a spiritual beast. Heavens, what kind of terrifying clan was that? Even though they were a large clan in the God Realm, surely such foul play couldn't happen, right? Moreover, from what Huang Zixiao meant, she was a member of that powerful clan. Was there a mistake somewhere? Wait a minute. Senior. Huang. You're saying, I'm from the Sacred Phoenix clan? Huang Zixiao paused for a moment as though he was looking at an idiot. Of course. This inheritance tower can only be activated by practitioners who possesses the bloodline of the Sacred Phoenix clan. Furthermore, the density of the bloodline must reach a certain degree, otherwise even if you let all the blood in your body run dry, you'd not be able to open the door at all. Now that you've already entered this place, you actually don't know which clan you belong to. But, this is not possible, isn't it? I mean, my background is very ordinary and there aren't many high-leveled practitioners in my family, and we are just an ordinary practitioner's family. Your background is ordinary? Huang Zixiao laughed grimly. You have a rare flame spirit physique which is not commonly seen even in the God Realm. If your background is indeed from an ordinary practitioner family, how would you have such good innate talent? Please use your brain slightly to think. Don't tell me your innate talent and physique was changed because you were struck by lightning. Huang Yueli felt that under Huang Zixiao's continuous setbacks, she was almost going to be despised to an idiot. This, to her, was a rare experience, and usually she was the one who despised others for being dumb, but today she had actually been despised by others. But the news which Huang Zixiao brought her was indeed too shocking, so there was no way she could remain calm. Suddenly, a thought flashed past her mind as she suddenly recalled her mother, who she had not met before, that she was a 9th-grade talented super genius, but her background was a total mystery. Could it be that? How is it? Finally understood what happened. Still not very sure, she was filled with puzzlement, but Huang Zixiao's bore a matter-of-fact expression and continued talking. Don't feel that it's not possible, since things have already come to pass, and the inheritance grounds absolutely would not allow those non-blood-related people to enter, so no matter what tricks they try to use to enter forcefully, they would all be expelled. When Huang Yueli heard these, her tears almost fell. After so long, she tried ways and means to shut Ling Wenbin outside the inheritance tower. In the end, it was a total waste of her energy. You can also listen on. That year when the Sacred Phoenix clan was still in Soaring Heaven's continent, Soaring Heaven's continent isn't what you see now. The profound chi was abundant and was a place in which all clans were fighting to stay in. If it wasn't for the fact that the Sacred Phoenix clan was powerful enough, we couldn't possibly occupy Soaring Heaven's continent for several thousand years that long. Only, later, an accident happened. Accident? Huang Yueli blinked as she asked, what accident? Huang Zixiao bypassed her question once again. Anyway, the heaven and earth profound chi became so thin only 1/10 of the past, so this resulted in the clan's decline in the number of geniuses. Even those who were able to ascend to the God realm also kept declining, so the clan had no choice but to make the decision to relocate. Saying until this point, he paused once again. But this time Huang Yueli kept silent, not continuing from there. She sort of understood that Huang Zixiao was simply self-conceited to the extreme, so naturally there probably was some clan secret which he couldn't let her know about. In conclusion, no matter what she asked, there wasn't any use, as he would not pay any attention to it, treating as though he didn't hear anything and would not answer her at all. As expected, even though she didn't say a word, Huang Zixiao continued to weave his story. Roughly 80,000 years ago, when the clan was at its peak, in order to filter out the clan's geniuses, the clan leader at that time had borrowed the entire clan's strength to build this inheritance tower. In this tower, there is a large amount of the clan's resources and cultivation methods inheritance. At the same time, it is an extremely harsh system, used to filter out the best top geniuses. During that time, the inheritance tower would be activated once a year, and the clan's talented practitioners who were between 15 to 20 years old would enter the tower and obtain the inheritance according to their performance. All the peerless geniuses who were formidable and renowned in the god realm had all experienced the inheritances assessment. However, after the entire clan relocated from Soaring Heaven's continent, this inheritance tower was left idle here. Your luck is extremely good, under such thin profound chi in Soaring Heaven's continent, to be able to enter the inheritance tower and have the standard ability to take part in the assessment. Huang Yueli finally couldn't help but butted in. Taking part in the inheritance assessment requires one to reach a certain standard ability. How is that possible? Huang Zixiao stared at her. You know that to activate the inheritance tower requires how much profound chi? The inheritance tower now is sometimes visible because of the lack of profound chi. Furthermore, when the clan was at its peak, there were millions of clansmen living in Soaring Heaven's continent, and it was not possible for everyone to take part in the assessment. So every time the inheritance tower was activated, the talented ones among the clan had to obtain a quota according to the battle ranking, and only those ranked top 500 geniuses could enter the inheritance tower. First 500, Huang Yueli's mouth twitched. She thought only the first 5 could enter the tower. First 500 seemed like there wasn't any difficulty at all. Huang Zixiao saw through what she was thinking as he snorted. What? Looking down on the first 500 geniuses? Let me tell you, at that time, those geniuses who had the qualifications to enter the inheritance tower, without any exception, were able to break through to the 10th stage realm before they turned 30 and ascend to the god realm. What? How is that possible? Huang Yueli turned pale with fright. Hearing this, she could no longer remain calm. The clan's top 500 were able to enter the inheritance tower, and moreover the inheritance tower was activated yearly. This meant that in the Sacred Phoenix, there were 500 genius practitioners who advanced to the 10th stage realm before they turned 30 yearly. You can also listen on. 10th stage realm. That was something which Mu Chengying, in his past life, had spent numerous effort on but yet still unable to attain at that realm. Remembering the incident before something happened to her, Mu Chengying once said that he had finally felt the threshold of breaking through to the 10th stage realm, but that, in order to save her, he forcefully stopped his closed-door cultivation and his stage realm dropped. And now she had no idea how he became Li Moying, 10th stage realm, probably wasn't able to attain that. So it could be seen how difficult it was to attain to the 10th stage realm. Even so, several thousand years ago, when Soaring Heaven's continent's heaven and earth's profound chi density was 10 times more than the current, based on Mu Chengying's innate talent then, he would probably had ascended long ago. But even so, on hearing that so many young practitioners breaking through to the 10th stage realm every year was still a shocking achievement. No wonder little Wang Cai said the Sacred Phoenix race was one of the 4 large clans in the god realm. This potential was indeed outstanding. Huang Zixiao saw her gasp in admiration expression as he felt more comfortable in his herd. This inexperienced young lass, when she first entered here, she was totally clueless about the clan's glamorous history, which simply made him, someone who was bursting with glory with the clan's honor, felt like his chest was so stuffed that he could die. Now, her performance finally seemed normal. Now do you understand? Know how big of an advantage you've picked up? Huang Zixiao hummed as he said chillingly. Huang Yueli nodded her head, indeed rather surprised. But surely this cannot be called as picking up an advantage, right? I feel that with my innate talent, even if it was several thousand years ago, I would still be able to enter the inheritance tower. Huang Zixiao had thought that after Huang Yueli heard what he said, she would absolutely put on a look as though a huge pie had dropped from the sky, knowing how lucky she was. In the end, this lass actually seemed as though it was a matter-of-fact thing to happen. Did she think that having a flame spirit physique was something incredible? Certainly, the flame spirit physique wasn't commonly seen among the sacred phoenix race, but in the way of cultivation, it wasn't purely just based on the innate physique only. Huang Zixiao spoke in displeasure. Looks like you're very confident. Feel that your innate talent is very good. Then why not hurry over and do the assessment? Assessment. Huang Yueli blinked. Huang Zixiao's wide robe sleeves waved towards the sky as the center of the high tower, which was originally empty, suddenly appeared a long crystal-like pillar, and under the strong reflection of the light, it looked sparkling and translucent with brilliant lights and vibrant colors, looking very magical. Although Huang Yueli had guessed something in her herd, but she still opened her mouth to ask, "What is this?" Huang Zixiao said, "This is the mechanism which we use commonly in the God realm to assess one's innate talent. Now walk to the center position of the pillar and unleash all the profound energy in your body into it. The light pillar's brightness will undergo changes according to your innate talent, and different brightness represented different innate talent grade." Huang Yueli was stunned for a moment. Innate talent grade? My flame spirit physique should be 9th grade innate talent and above. Huang Zixiao's lips revealed a scornful smile. 1st to 9th grade innate talent is something which those ordinary practitioners who aren't from a clan uses to assess the grade. In a large clan like the Sacred Phoenix race, innate talents of 9th grade and below are all considered as ordinary grade innate talent. Ordinary grade innate talent? What is that? Huang Yueli couldn't understand it at all. Although Huang Zixiao seemed slightly impatient, but he still started to explain. In God realm, the real geniuses' innate talent grading are categorized into 4 different grades: heaven grade, earth grace, human grade, and ordinary grade. Soaring Heaven's continent's so-called 1st to 9th grade talent all fall into the category of ordinary grade. You can also listen on. Ordinary grade is the most basic innate talent grade. That only represented that this person was barely enough to cultivate to become a practitioner, whereas human grade innate talent meant that this person had the ability to pass through the cultivation to ascend to God realm. Of course, Soaring Heaven's continent's current method of assessing innate talents is wrong, so for those extremely strong practitioners with better innate talent may only be tested as 9th grade, but there was still a possibility of a human grade genius. So that's why, Huang Yueli sighed in a soft voice. She was saying that year Mu Chengying's innate talent had obviously surpassed her 9th grade talent by so much then, but their assessment results was still the same. Looks like Mu Chengying should at least be a human grade genius, only Soaring Heaven's continent wasn't capable of assessing it correctly. She asked again, then, heaven grade and earth grade innate talent, what are those? Huang Zixiao sneered coldly, you certainly have some self-confidence to ask about heaven and earth grade innate talent, but what's the point? Anyway, you cannot possibly have that kind of innate talent. Huang Yueli was first stunned, as she asked puzzledly, why is it not possible? The speed of my cultivation had always been very fast. Moreover, you had said earlier that my type of flame spirit physique is not commonly seen in the God realm, so surely there must be something which is exceptional about it, right? Huang Zixiao replied, you're right, flame spirit physique is indeed rarely seen, but that's only part of your innate talent, which means to say your affinity towards fire attribute is extremely high. Although this is an obvious advantage, but the real innate talent isn't just about affinity but your power of comprehension, endurance, physique. A combination of various elements to yield the result. Having the same flame spirit physique, some may possibly be a heaven-grade genius but many are merely a human-grade genius. Seeing Huang Yueli still not convinced, he continued, you think that heaven-grade geniuses are that easy? In God realm, among 10,000 human-grade geniuses there would only be 1 earth-grade genius. Among 10,000 earth-grade geniuses, there is only 1 heaven-grade talent. If it was a practitioner who is a direct descendant of the Sacred Phoenix race, then there is a 10% chance that the person is an earth-grade genius. Although the Sacred Phoenix race bloodline runs within your body, but the members who stayed behind in Soaring Heaven's continent were all sub-branches among the branches and the density of their bloodlines are not high. So after tens of thousands of years, the bloodline now has probably thinned out and the innate talent which was inherited naturally wouldn't be any higher. I see. Huang Yueli nodded. Hearing these, to say she was not disappointed was not possible, but changing her thoughts, the profound cheese density in soaring heaven's continent was just like that, so the chances of ascending in the future is not high, so whichever grade genius she belonged to in the god realm didn't seem that important at all. As long as she could successfully obtain the inheritance in the inheritance tower, and raised her own ability, as long as she doesn't drag Li Moying's hind feet, to her, that was already a huge reward. With this thought in mind, she turned towards Huang Zixiao and said, "When can I start the assessment?" Huang Zixiao said, "Go to the center of the light pillar first to test your innate talent grade. In the inheritance tower, towards different clansmen with different innate talent grades, the difficulty of the tests are different. The higher the grade of the test, the better the rewards are. So you must try your best to unleash all of your ability to obtain the inheritance tower's acknowledgement." Although he said so, but in Huang Zixiao's heart he had already ascertained that Huang Yueli was definitely a human-grade genius, and furthermore, someone who was in the lower level among the human grade. No matter how much profound energy she unleashed, the result would still be the same. You can also listen on. His detailed explanation earlier was merely a formality. Huang Yueli wasn't draggy, as well as she simply nodded and walked towards the center of the light pillar. Following her entry, the light pillar instantly extinguished as it restored its icy cold, transparent crystal luster. Huang Zixiao said, "Let's start." The minute his voice stopped, Huang Yueli took a deep breath and immediately unleashed all the profound energy within her. Among the surge of fire-attributed energy, other mixed-attributed profound energy also charged towards the entire light pillar. Light pillar's bottom most part started to light up first. The color which was instantly reflected was a blazing fire-red color, as its rays were dazzling, attracting one's eyes. Huang Zixiao was originally looking on the sideline with an expressionless face, thinking that this was just a formality, but as the bright glare lit up the light pillar, it illuminated the entire high tower and an astonished look was shown on his face as his eyes turned wide as he couldn't help but take a step out. How could this be possible? How could the brightness possibly be so strong? Huang Yueli's continued to imbue her profound energy into this light pillar, and not only was it dazzling, it even climbed all the way up. In the inheritance tower, the brightness of the energization of the light pillar represented the intensity of the practitioner's affinity and strength, whereas the height of the light pillar represented the practitioner's innate talent grade. Huang Yueli had a flame spirit physique, and originally her fire-attributed affinity and strength were already very strong, so towards this point, Huang Zixiao had long expected this outcome. But no matter how much mental preparation he had, when this happened right in front of his eyes, it still gave him a great shock. Because this was just too bright. It was simply not possible for common flame spirit physiques to achieve such brightness. Even when the entire clan was at its peak, such a practitioner who could light up the pillar to such brightness were mostly the top talents within the family clan. Not only that, Huang Yueli's light pillar was not totally red in color. Amidst the red-colored rays were mixed with other colors. Even if the red was shining brightly, but there was no way to suppress all the other colors' rays. This meant that she didn't just had one single fire attribute, but also had the innate talent for the other attribute. Furthermore, under the circumstances where her fire-attributed affinity and strength were so strong, there was simply no way to conceal the other attribute's innate talent which she had, so that meant she was 100% multi-attribute genius. The other attribute's innate talents as compared to fire attribute were not inferior in any respect. Heavens, how could this be? Her fire attribute affinity and strength is actually so high. Even if her power of comprehension, determination, and others are not so good, but with this kind of affinity, there are hopes for her to become an Earth-grade genius. But immediately following that, Huang Zixiao shook his head as he mumbled to himself, "But this is only a possibility. Only one or two Earth-grade geniuses among the sacred Phoenix race would appear every several decades. And basically those were all direct descendants or side branches clansmen who could become Earth-grade geniuses, and sometimes there might not even be one after several thousand years. This young lass naturally couldn't be one." Just as he was in deep thoughts, The light pillar continued to climb up. Very quickly, it had already shot past the bottom-most portion and reached the height of human-grade genius, but the light pillar didn't stop there and continued climbing upward. But after rushing past half of the height, the speed of the light pillar started to slow down gradually, especially the nearer it reached Earth-grade genius's height. The speed of ascension became slower and slower. Huang Zixiao sighed with emotion. My guess is indeed correct. This young lass is unable to reach the Earth grade. You can also listen on. But she's already very incredible. This innate talent, amongst the human-grade geniuses, is already at the forefront. Adding on to her multi-attribute innate talents, if she could obtain the clan's inheritance, even if she met the lowest tier of Earth-grade genius, she might be able to fight it out. The light pillar's ascension speed continued its snail pace and finally, as though it was about to stop. Huang Zixiao sighed, about to end. Just at this moment, a much more glaring ray than before shone brilliantly, and following that, it ferociously jumped by up a notch as it directly shot past the Earth-grade talents checkpoint. What's this situation? At this moment, the calm and disdainful look could no longer be found on Huang Zixiao's face, as he had completely gone into a shocked daze by what he saw. Because, even in his wildest dreams, he had not expected Huang Yueli to be able to reach the standard of an Earth-grade genius. Even several thousand years ago, there were very few Earth-grade geniuses assessed in the Inheritance Tower. What's more about the current place where resources were so scarce? How did she do it? Could it be that because she possessed a flame spirit physique, so those side branches remnants of the sacred phoenix race who were left behind in Soaring Heaven's continent had all thrown whatever resources they had onto her, which was why they were able to nurture such a unique Earth-grade genius? But this saying wasn't totally correct. Sacred phoenix race's valuable inheritance had all been brought to the God realm, and those which could not be taken away were all in the Inheritance Tower. Even if she was one of the clan's side branch valued peerless genius, how much resources would she possibly get? Probably what she could not even be compared to what God realm's lowest leveled rubbish could get. Under such circumstances, she actually became an Earth-grade genius. However, what Huang Zixiao didn't expected was, Huang Yueli not only did not get any resources from the God realm's direct descent, in actual fact, she did not enjoy any resources at all, not to mention anyone nurturing her. If he knew the truth behind this, his tears would absolutely flow. While Huang Zixiao was in deep thoughts, the light pillar which was energized by Huang Yueli continued climbing upwards. Besides that, after stepping over the boundary which marked out the Earth grade, she seemed to break through a bottleneck as the light pillar's speed actually didn't decrease, and had been stably rising upwards. Even though it wasn't as fast as initial stage, but it was extremely stable. Huang Zixiao's jaw tightened as he kept his eye on the light pillar's upwards trend, as he began to feel unwell. Huang Yueli's performance had exceeded his imagination, because if the light pillar continued to ascend higher. Heavens, have I been shut in the Inheritance Tower for too long, which is why I'm hallucinating? How could anyone possibly reach heaven grade? Among the direct descendants in the clan, only one heaven grade geniuses appeared every 3,000 years. This absolutely is a misperception. Even if she could get closer to heaven grade, but she couldn't possibly reach heaven grade. Because when the light pillar reached the highest 1/10th part, to hope to ascend just 1 inch was as difficult as reaching for the skies. So no matter how close she gets, she will not be able to reach it. But she actually had reached such a forefront position among the Earth-grade geniuses. This innate talent is simply incomparable. Even though the profound chi density in Soaring Heaven's continent is so low now, she has a 90% chance of being able to ascend to God realm, but she will need to spend hundreds of years to do so. Even if she returns to the clan in God realm in future, she would be highly valued and nurtured by the clan. Wait, what's that? You can also listen on. He saw the light pillar had slowly reached the top of the tower, leaving only just 1/10th of a distance from the peak. But the light pillar had not stopped ascending. Rather, it steadily broke through this checkpoint and continued climbing. Could it be? Impossible. This probably is already her limit. At this point of time, Huang Yueli, who was standing in the center of the light pillar, was indeed reaching her limit. When she entered this innate testing mechanism, she discovered that this mechanism, which was left behind from the ancient times, had indeed been as overbearing as the sacred Phoenix clan. It wasn't like what Huang Zixiao mentioned earlier, to let her inject her profound energy of her own accord. On the contrary, the minute she stepped in, the light pillar began to actively absorb the profound energy within her. After entering not too long ago, her profound energy was almost being sucked dry. This was why when she just reached Earth grade, the profound energy in her hadn't much left and the light pillar seemed to have halted in ascending. Actually, to be able to reach a standard near the Earth grade genius, to her as a practitioner who grew up in the lower realm was already an universally shocking innate talent. In her own continent, she was already considered to be a top-rated peerless expert. But at this moment, she heard Huang Zixiao's ramblings to himself. Side branches clansmen, who could become Earth-grade geniuses, and sometimes there might not even be one after several thousand years. This young lass naturally couldn't be one. What Huang Yueli hated the most was to be despised by others, not to mention that others saying that she could not do something. Why was it not possible? She just had to do it to show him that she could do it. Furthermore, the result of the innate talent assessment was not just about figures, it also decided the difficulty and rewards which she would gain after the training, and she must give a shot on this. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli clenched her teeth hard as she persisted and continued to throw in whatever profound energy that remained within her body. 9 Phoenix transformations was a cultivation method which specialized in recovery, which enabled her to regain her profound energy much faster than other people in the middle of a battle. She tried her best to extract her own capacity, hoping to regain more profound energy to inject into the light pillar. As expected, although the speed of the light pillar's ascension had grown extremely slow, but it was still climbing upward. But her effort and perseverance were still limited, and just as she was a line away from the Earth grade standard, Huang Yueli's profound energy was completely sucked dry, which meant that she really had reached her limit. Huang Yueli's face was pale as she bit her lip, with no choice but to accept that this indeed was her innate talent. Just as she was waiting to be transmitted out, suddenly, the Sky Phoenix ring which had melded into her started to vibrate. Immediately following that, the Sky Phoenix ring suddenly emitted a glow, as her entire dantian was enveloped in it, making her feel as though she was soaked in the medicinal bath while she was advancing. Her entire body felt as though she was being torched by flames, so hot that she always cried out loudly. These glowing energies started to spread apart, dissipating into each and every meridian of hers. Huang Yueli could feel that this energy was not profound energy, but a kind of much more strong and more dangerous energy, but she totally didn't know how to use it. Luckily at this moment, she was at the center of the light pillar, and she was required to actively use these energy. The light pillar automatically absorbed these energy. Relatively, the light pillar's length swiftly extended by a notch, as it steadily surpassed the Earth grade's checkpoint. You can also listen on. The energy in the Sky Phoenix ring was as though a steady flow. No matter how much the light pillar absorbed it, it still steadily unleashed the power outwards. Because of that, the light pillar also rose upwards and it didn't met with any further obstruction. It was all the way until the distance was 1/10 away from the peak when Huang Yueli felt the energy in her meridians gradually turning lesser. By the time it had reached a distance of 1% away from the peak, the energy in her was almost depleted. What should she do? It's just that little bit left again. Huang Zixiao was already in so much shock that he was totally unable to sit still. Heaven grade. This was heaven grade. This young lass was actually so near to heaven grade. What concept was that? Haven grade genius was a rare existence in the entire God realm. Towards the super-leveled sacred Phoenix race clan, it was already a high frequency if they were able to come out with one in every 10,000 years. As for those slightly smaller influences in God realm, in the hundreds of thousands of history, if they were able to get just one, their ancestors' graves would fume green smoke. If Huang Yueli could reach it, then. But don't think that it was just 1% away. The later it was, the more difficult it became. At this moment in time, in order for the light pillar to step over that last natural moat, and reach the most excelled standard which everyone looked up to, it wasn't just based on their inborn physique, potential, comprehension but purely determination. It was all based on a heart filled with determination, only thinking of moving forwards and not giving up. If there wasn't any slightly bigotry determination, No matter how good the inborn qualifications were, then one would not have any possibility of breaking through. So, there were numerous superior geniuses who had great inborn talents, but they were unable to be recognized as heaven grade, so after they had confirmed that all their potential had been unleashed, they chose to give up. Whereas for Huang Yueli, would she give up? Huang Yueli didn't give up, and she didn't want to give up. It was just this little bit left and she had gone through so much to come to this step, so how could she possibly give up? She knew that she needed more strength and needed to grow up more. She wanted to stand side by side with Mu Chengying and she wanted to exact revenge towards those who had caused her death in her previous life. All these required her to become strong. Furthermore, she must turn stronger in the shortest amount of time. She must persevere in taking this last step. But after the energy in the Sky Phoenix ring was depleted, the light pillar could not extract any more energy from her body, hence it started to draw her blood essence. Blood essence was a person's underlying foundation, and once it had been drawn out, their lifespan would be swiftly weakened and even a huge possibility which would lead to their deaths directly. Huang Yueli only felt that there were two different energies in and outside her body, which kept tugging and pulling, as though it was about to split her up into two halves. But even under such pain and pressure, she still forced herself to remain calm. Earlier, although there was Sky Phoenix ring to supply energy to the light pillar, but she had not given up on using the 9 Phoenix transformations to regenerate her own profound energy. Even though she knew that this little bit of profound energy was definitely not a lot, but she absolutely would not give up any sliver of hope. The cultivation method had been operated till now and she finally accumulated some profound energy. She tried her best to persist on and injected these profound energy into her meridians. The light pillar quickly drew away that little bit of profound energy which she managed to squeeze out. Immediately following that, the light pillar began to move upwards again. Its snail pace was so slow that one could not see any changes at all. But no matter how slow it was still continuing to ascend. Finally, gradually moving closer towards the peak. 1 of 100th. 1 of 1000th. 1 of 10,000th. You can also listen on. By now, Huang Zixiao had completely forgot to breathe as his eyes were totally affixed on the light pillar, not even daring to blink just so that he was afraid that he might miss a single bit of change on it. He knew that he was witnessing a miraculous birth right now. The birth of a heaven-grade genius. After a difficult time of climbing, it finally reached the peak of the inheritance tower. Just at this instance, the entire light pillar suddenly emitted a super glaring ray, which was much more brighter by several times than before, and instantly, the entire inheritance tower was enveloped in this strong light. Although Huang Zixiao was only a spirit body, but he was still unable to open his eyes fully from such a blaring ray. It was only after the glow gradually subsided when Huang Yueli's figure finally appeared in the center of the high tower. She laid on one side, totally immovable, but the expression on her face wasn't in pain, but rather it was exceptionally peaceful. The light pillar had already shattered into pieces by now as it enveloped her entire body. The shattered pieces, one after another, dropped down onto her body as it begun to be absorbed into her. Female devil, what's happened to you? Finished. Will you die or not? If you die, who will cook chicken drumsticks for me to eat? As Huang Zixiao was afraid that little Phoenix would disrupt the entire process, he had kept it sealed within a boundary, so no matter how he bounced or hopped, he was not allowed to leave it. Now that everything had ended, he finally waved his hand to remove the boundary. When little Wang Cai was released, it immediately pounced onto Huang Yueli, bawling loudly. Huang Zixiao was still soaked in the shock from the birth of a heaven-grade genius, but on seeing this, his forehead creased as he suddenly felt that an act was put on. What on earth was happening? This young lass actually fed a phoenix chicken drumsticks. And from what it said, she seemed to have fed him a lot. No wonder this phoenix was so fat, and it had dysplasia. Sigh, a young lass was after all a young lass. She was still so young and had no knowledge, so even if she was heaven grade, but she still didn't know how to rear a spiritual beast. Later he must educate her properly. Not knowing how much time had passed, Huang Yueli finally awoke from her concussion. Her memories started to return to her as she hurriedly sat up. She took a deep breath to sense the profound energy within her body and shockingly discovered that she actually actually advanced successfully. She was now a 4th-stage realm practitioner. Furthermore, during the last moment in the light pillar, she had obviously felt her entire blood and chi energy being sucked dry, and was worried that her life would be shortened, but now, her blood essence was flourishing. Not only did she not show any signs of aging, on the contrary, she even felt that she had more vitality than before. Just as she was in a daze, she heard footsteps closing in. Congratulations, you're the 3rd heaven-grade genius to be assessed by this inheritance tower. Huang Yueli went into a short blank and instantly gave a mixed expression which showed shock and joy. I succeeded. Earlier I was just lacking a little to break through to heave grade, but after I tried my best, I fainted directly, so I thought I had failed. No, you've succeeded. At the same time, so successful and perfectly completed the 1st stage of refinement. Huang Zixiao smiled as he said that. Earlier when Huang Yueli just stepped in, his attitude was still filled with 90% of arrogance. After all, he was the clan's minister who had guarded the inheritance tower for several thousands of years, whereas Huang Yueli was merely a nobody among the younger generation. He had seen a lot of such people, so naturally he wouldn't give a hoot about them. But now, the situation was totally different. Huang Yueli actually became a heaven-grade genius. Perhaps even she herself didn't know what that meant, but Huang Zixiao knew clearly what it meant. You can also listen on. There was no need to think. If one day Huang Yueli was able to enter the God realm, she would definitely become someone whom the clan would spend all their efforts into nurturing this peerless genius. For this kind of character, to tell the truth, he absolutely must get on good terms with her. Hence, Huang Zixiao's attitude took a 360-degree turn and immediately treated her in an amiable manner. Huang Yueli naturally could tell that his tone was different from before, but she didn't think much of it. Because in this world whereby the strong were treated with respect, one's potential was the entrance pass to everywhere, so the other party's reaction was as normal as it could it. After Huang Yueli indulged in her happiness for a moment, she said, "That's right, senior, earlier you seem to have mentioned that I've passed the 1st stage of refinement. When did that happen? Could it be that it was when I was in a concussion and it had unfathomably passed by?" Huang Zixiao laughed. Of course not. The process of refinement was the innate talent assessment itself. This wasn't just an assessment on your potential, but also towards your determination. Earlier, while you were being accessed, the light pillar had halted twice in its ascension, so had you met with a bottleneck? If you had given up halfway or admitted that it was due to the fact that you couldn't do anything else, would you still be able to obtain the evaluation of heaven grade? Huang Yueli's face immediately revealed an expression which showed she was in deep thoughts. So it's like that, Huang Zixiao continued, since it's refinement, then there would definitely be a reward. Earlier the profound energy and blood essence which was drawn away from you by the light pillar had been returned to your body doublefold, so don't tell me you couldn't feel that your condition is much better than it originally was. Furthermore, you've even advanced. Huang Yueli was just feeling strange earlier, but now she finally understood. So the inheritance tower actually has such a miraculous existence. To return the profound energy twice the amount into her meridians, no wonder she hadn't soaked in the medicinal bath but felt a breakthrough on the shackles of the flame spirit physique, completing an entire huge realm's breakthrough. But of course, for Sacred Phoenix race, such a powerful clan, to hold on to a large amount of resources, the practitioners within the clan definitely wasn't the same as her, affected by a flame spirit physique and being treated as trash by others, living muddleheadly for the past 14 years. Their advancement should be rather easy. I'd not expected the inheritance tower's reward to be so miraculous, she sighed with emotion. Huang Zixiao laughed. This is merely the 1st stage's reward. Moreover, not everyone would be able to receive the profound energy back twofold. If the assessment had ended at ordinary grade, then the reward obtained would be very little. Furthermore, there are really very rare cases where anyone was able to advance directly like you, so you're really a heaven-grade genius. The profound energy within you, just how abundant is it? Huang Yueli went into a blank for a moment before she continued, actually, my cultivation level isn't very high and my profound energy isn't considered as abundant, so I wonder when the light pillar ascended, just what standard did it rely on to measure it? Huang Zixiao nodded. Innate talent assessment assesses potential and innate talent, so I can only say your innate talent has surpassed others. Huang Yueli lowered her head as she smiled, not continuing on this topic any further. In actual fact, she knew clearly that she was able to reach heaven grade successfully. Mainly it was because of that mysterious energy which suddenly exploded from Sky Phoenix Ring. That wasn't profound energy but another kind of special energy, but she didn't know what it was exactly. But she was very careful not to display it out, as her instinct told her that the Sky Phoenix Ring wasn't any ordinary god relic. Luckily, Huang Zixiao didn't notice that something was wrong with her. He continued, following this, are you going to continue with the second stage of refinement immediately? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli asked curiously, second stage of refinement? How many stages are there in total? Huang Zixiao answered, the refinement has a total of 3 stages. But as of now, you can only complete the first 2 stages of refinement. Why? Because only 9th stage realm practitioners can withstand the 3rd stage of refinement. Furthermore, the foremost condition which determine if you can enter it is if you are able to complete the 2nd stage of refinement perfectly. Let's not talk about how many thousand and 100 miles your cultivation is away from the 9th stage realm, just this 2nd stage of refinement, you might not be able to obtain the result which you want. Why is that so? Huang Yueli quipped curiously. Huang Zixiao explained, because you have obtained the Heaven Grade Genius evaluation, so you will need to take part in the Heaven Grade refinement. The difficulty of the Heaven Grade refinement is much higher by several notches as compared to the other 3 grades. Do you remember that I mentioned earlier that you're the 3rd in this inheritance tower to be accessed to be a Heaven Grade Genius practitioner? The 2 before you weren't able to pass through the 2nd stage of refinement perfectly. Ah, it's that difficult. Huang Yueli immediately became dumbstruck, as thought flashed past her mind. If she knew this earlier, she would have directly stopped at Earth grade. She made a huge loss this round. Huang Yueli totally didn't conceal the expression on her face, so that little expression was just too obvious. Huang Zixiao took a look at her and knew what she was thinking, so his face turned green immediately. Why? From your expression, you're regretting it. How can youngsters have no wish for success and only look at what they will gain from it? Huang Yueli laughed dryly, but she thought to herself, rubbish, if it wasn't for the refinement reward, I wouldn't have risked my life and fought hard to take part in the refinement. These days, it wasn't easy for anyone to survive, so if there are no gains, who would DI it? Huang Zixiao stared at her as he continued, Heaven Grade Genius reward would of course be much better than Earth Grade Geniuses. If you can pass through this 2nd stage of refinement perfectly, the reward that you obtain would be the same as an Earth Grade Genius's 3rd stage reward. As for Earth Grade Genius passing the 3rd stage refinement, the probability is probably not even 1 in 10,000 people, and one must be in 9th stage realm in order to obtain this reward. If you think in this way, don't you think you've earned it big time? Huang Yueli's surprised and joyful eyes instantly grew big. Seems like I really earned big time. Huang Zixiao almost fainted. Among the sacred Phoenix race clansmen whom he had encountered, which one of them didn't have the demeanor of a large clan's disciple? Even if they thought about the various rewards and gains in their hearts and were all calculating deep within, no one would reflect this on the surface. How devalued was this? When had he ever met anything who acted like Huang Yueli, totally a moneygrubber face? The most mysterious part was this expression surfacing on such a pure and elegant face, but it didn't make anyone have the slightest bit of dislike, instead it made her look even more lovable. Huang Zixiao was annoyed as he held it in for some time, thinking to lecture her but on thinking that this non-reasonable young lass was actually a heaven-grade genius, so he gagged and forced his words back, changing his words. Then will you take part in the 2nd stage of the refinement or will you like to cultivate for a while, to stabilize your cultivation? Huang Yueli thought for a moment and replied, I think I better take part in the refinement right now. Huang Zixiao didn't manage to tolerate it and shot his mouth off. You'd better think about this carefully. The difficulty of the 2nd stage of refinement is very high and if you were to enter it, but not able to pass through it perfectly, there won't be a second chance. Now that you've finally broke through a large realm, isn't it better for you to cultivate a little while more so that you can put out your potential to your largest extent? You can also listen on. However, Huang Yueli insisted, better to do it now. How would she not understood what Huang Zixiao said? But in order to solidify her cultivation, it would take at least a month's time for it to be completely stabilized. She was still in a hurry to get to Celestial Light Sect and meet up with Li Moying, so she wasn't able to waste any more time. Since that's so, why now she should strike the iron while it's still hot, and using this timing where she had just advanced, since the profound energy in her was most abundant right now, perhaps she might be able to work it up to complete the refinement at one go. Huang Zixiao was silently coughing up blood in his heart. This heaven-grade young lass was really non-reasonable. The things she said and did were totally not following the proper pathway. How on earth did she become heaven-grade? He speechlessly flicked his sleeves. In the center of the high tower, 4 big doors appeared out of nowhere, and the surroundings were filled with rising flame patterns. See the rightmost door with the word heaven on it. Walk through that door and scale the stories in the Inheritance Tower. There are a total of 7 stories in the Inheritance Tower, and in each single story, you will meet different cultivation and number of opponents. You must defeat them all to enter the next story. If you're defeated, then you will be expelled out. The more stories you enter, the better the reward you will obtain. Have you heard me clearly? Huang Yueli nodded. I understand, then I'll go in right now. Wait a minute. Just as Huang Yueli was about to walk through the door, Huang Zixiao called out to her from behind. Don't blame me for not reminding you. The difficulty of this stage is related to your age and not comparable to your actual potential. To tell the truth, you're going to turn 15 but still at the early stage of 4th stage realm cultivation. As compared to our sacred phoenix race in ancient times, your cultivation is considered low. The enemies you encounter when you enter now will be much stronger than what you can imagine. If you really cannot handle it, don't force yourself, otherwise there is a possibility that you will sustain permanent injuries. Huang Yueli's footsteps halted as a glint of resolution flashed past her eyes. I understand, thank you senior. Huang Zixiao's words were truly out of concern for her. Based on Huang Yueli's current cultivation, in the current soaring heavens continent with such diluted profound qi, naturally it was already not bad, but the Inheritance Tower's refinement was set up according to the conditions thousands of years ago. Moreover, she had passed the heaven-grade refinement. You could imagine the difficulty. In the past, it wasn't as though there weren't any geniuses in the clan who were injured in the Inheritance Tower. 10,000 years ago, every single time the Inheritance Tower opened up, there would be a few practitioners who tried to flaunt their superiority and got seriously injured in the 2nd stage, thereafter affecting their cultivation later on. Huang Zixiao was very worried that this rare heaven-grade genius would sustain injury because she had undermined her opponent. If she were to die here, then it would be a huge loss to the entire clan. He had expected that even after hearing his advice, not only did Huang Yueli not become more cautious, she even seemed to become more excited. This. Sigh, youngsters, really don't know how high the sky is. You'll understand after you enter the place, and if you're expelled just after 3 to 4 stories, then you'd know what's called embarrassment. While Huang Zixiao was ridiculing her, Huang Yueli strode into the big door with the word heaven. The flame flickered and she disappeared right in front of Huang Zixiao and Little Phoenix. The big door closed up behind Huang Yueli. Behind the door was the same layout as the Inheritance Tower's interior design, only difference was she could not see Huang Zixiao and Little Phoenix. Other than that, the first story's enemy had already appeared in front of her. She raised her head and took a look but was truly shocked as a stupefied expression was shown on her face. You can also listen on. Celestial Light Academy. Jiang Tuxin was standing right in front of Li Moying as he explained with fear and trepidation, as sweat kept dripping from his forehead. Young sect master, the matter has already been investigated clearly. He raised his head and stole a glance at Li Moying, and shuddered uncontrollably as he saw his icy cold look, but he could only force himself to continue speaking. The person who was secretly tailing Miss Bai, and attacking the others in the middle of the road, is highly possibly Celestial Light Sect's Vice Principal Ling Wenbin. Because there are only a total of 3 people who are of 7th stage realm in Celestial Light Sect. 2 of them had been on rotation duty at the scripture depository and had not left their positions, whereas Ling Wenbin had been certified to have gone missing since the day Miss Bai left Celestial Light Academy. Furthermore, according to the description of the situation by those few merchants from Jade Wind Merchant Guild, it fitted Ling Wenbin totally. Li Moying coldly replied, "Your so-called investigate clearly is just to tell me this conclusion? That old fool dares to lay his hands on my woman, so naturally he deserves thousands of death. I will absolutely not let him off. But now, is the most important matter about whether it's him or not. The most important thing now is to find Leah. Which of you can tell me where Leah is right now?" Hearing Li Moying's harsh and severe questions, those present all lowered their heads in silence, not daring to look at his eyes. Ever since the day they found out that something had happened to Huang Yueli, they had been searching for her without any rest for the past 7 to 8 days under Li Moying's direction. It was merely a few thousand miles of journey from Celestial Light Academy to Celestial Light Sect, and they had already led hundreds of people, searching from head to toe, and they've already interrogated almost every single family in the nearby towns, but no one had seen anyone who looked like Huang Yueli or Ling Wenbin appearing at all. This kind of situation was just a little too strange. As the saying went, see the person alive and the corpse if dead. 2 living people just disappeared into thin air like that. Wasn't that strange? And the merchants from Jade Wind Merchant Guild had confirmed that the location of the incident happened nearby, which had been surrounded by Li Moying's men, which even water could not leak out. They were just short of digging up the ground to look for them. But from the battle marks left on the ground, they could only tell that the both of them headed towards the east side, and the trail ended just after 10 over miles, without any sign of battle at all. If it wasn't for the fact that they were still rational, they would probably had suspected that these 2 had vanished from the face of the earth. After investigating for 7 to 8 days continuously, everyone present cut in a sorry state. Amongst them, the one who looked most disheveled was Li Moying himself. For the longest time ever, he had not shut his eyes for more than 2 hours, and the panda rings under his eyes were super black, but the cold and severe look beneath his eyes increased by the day. Anyone who exchanged glances with him could not help but tremble with fear. Li Moying had personally went to every single route to the towns which Huang Yueli could possibly appear in. The result had always been disappointing. His Leah had disappeared just like that. Could she really had been killed by that old fool? Li Moying totally didn't dare to face that kind of conclusion. Moreover, he felt that it just wasn't possibly deep down in his heart. His Leah couldn't possibly have died easily like this. She is so resourceful and so witty, and with that strong innate talent and response, even if it was facing a 7th realm practitioner, she would definitely have a way. You can also listen on. No matter how much Li Moying tried to convince himself that Huang Yueli wasn't dead, but as the investigation went on day after day without any progress, he started to doubt himself. If Huang Yueli was still alive, on seeing so many people searching for her, and even seeing Li Moying and those familiar shadow guards appearing nearby, how could she not possibly show up? Li Moying had not expected that Huang Yueli actually entered an early historical remains. Besides that, as the inheritance tower's energy wasn't enough, so every 49 days then would it appear once in the wilderness, not to mention that the location of its appearance would always be slightly different. Those without the treasure map in their hands had a 99% possibility of not being able to find its position. Li Moying was getting very anxious, plus the fact that he had not rested for a long time, not even eating anything much. So his mind started to whirl as he fell towards the ground. Young sect master. Shadow guards hurriedly crowded around him as they held him at, simultaneously advising him to rest. Master, we have not done well in not being able to locate third miss. Don't be anxious, rest properly for a day. I believe that third miss, with her intelligence and wit, even if she met with a perilous situation, she would be able to turn the bad things around. That's right, young sect master, you can't be overly anxious about such matters. You're the entire sect's hope, and if your body collapses, then enough. Li Moying's hand held his groggy head. Leah is suffering in some place suffering, and you want me to rest? How could I even have the heart to rest? All of you get out and search for her. Think clearly if there's anywhere that you've not searched and which clues had been missed out by us. If we're just one step short and that caused an unsalvageable consequences, all of you don't even think of having a good life ahead. Quickly go. The more he thought, the more anxious he got as he was unable to wait any further and continued to rush out to search for her. Looking at Li Moying departing back, all the shadow guards bore an anxious look on their faces. Jiang Tuxin was drenched in sweat as he worriedly looked towards Mo Yi. Protector Mo, you think? What should we do about this? It's been so many days and we still aren't able to locate Miss Bai's whereabouts. To tell the truth, in my heart, I really think that, stop your wild guesses. Mo Yi hurriedly stopped him. If these words were to enter Master's ears, even 1,000 deaths for you isn't enough. Jiang Tuxin hurriedly shut his mouth and after some time, he gave a long sigh. Ari, what do you think about this matter? Mo Yi replied, Principal Jiang, since Master has already given his instructions, the only way we have left now is to continue searching. Do you dare to defy Master's instructions? Moreover, you don't understand Third Miss well enough. She's not that kind of person who would easily fall into the hands of others. She's not that weak, so she must definitely be alive. In actual fact, Jiang Tuxin really wasn't sure why such a petite young girl like Huang Yueli, without any family background, had the full support and adoration of Li Moying and his shadow guards. To be able to captivate the heart of Li Moying, this kind of man, depended on luck, but to even be able to convince his subordinates, that absolutely wasn't something which common people could achieve. Even if it was Murong Fei, those shadow guards totally didn't catch their eyes. Mo Yi hurriedly added, as compared to Third Miss's whereabouts, I'm more worried about another matter and I'm afraid by then, I'd need Principal Jiang's help on it. Jiang Tuxin shivered as he subconsciously felt that it wasn't a good thing. You can also listen on. Indeed, his instincts were spot on. The minute Mo Yi opened his mouth to iterate it, it almost scared him to death. In another 7 days, will be the full moon's night. Jiang Tuxin's heart thumped hard. Mo Yi hurriedly continued, as you've seen previously, whenever Master acted up, it is actually very terrifying. Moreover, recently there's the trend of his illness becoming more serious than before, as each time it acted up, it was more and more powerful. Only when Third Miss stayed by his side, would he be pacified. If something really happened to Third Miss, all of us are going to run into bad luck. The problem is already very serious now, and if we still aren't able to locate Third Miss within 7 days, what should we do when Master's illness acts up? Jiang Tuxin was tense to the max. This. Protector Mo, in the past when Miss Bai wasn't around, didn't you all have any way to handle this? Mo Yi replied, there is a way. In the past, Divine Dr. Liu had specially refined some medicinal pill for Master and it could slightly control his illness, but as a prevention, we need at least 4 ninth stage realm and above sect elders to stand guard at the same time for Master. If Master refuses to return to the sect and if his illness acts up halfway during the journey, things are going to turn out very badly. Then what should we do? Jiang Tuxin was totally at a loss. Mo Yi's lips revealed a calculated smile. He. That's why I said I need Principal Jiang to coordinate with me. Let's think of a way to trick Master back. At least we gotta wait till full moon's night is over and only let him out after his body has recuperated. You're not afraid that after young sect Master finds out about the truth, he will go mad? Do you still want your little life? Jiang Tuxin was drenched in a headful of sweat as he never expected Mo Yi to have so much guts to this extent. Mo Yi was actually pretty helpless. There's no other way. You think I'm willing to defy Master? But as compared to his life, I'm willing to accept my punishment after this deed is done. Don't worry, you just need to coordinate with me to tell a few lies. I won't confess anything about you after the deed is completed. But, Jiang Tuxin had wanted to shirk, but he was held on by Mo Yi's carrot and stick approach, so in the end he could only agree to it. Mo Yi solved a huge problem and on the surface, he was relieved, but within his heart, it had turned extremely heavy. He looked away at the eastern part of the sky and went into deep thoughts. This time, even if they were able to trick Master back to the sect, but surely they weren't able to do it every single month, right? Master couldn't possibly be tricked every single time too? Third Miss, where on earth have you gone to? If you still don't return, everyone's not going to be able to continue living. In the Inheritance Tower. Huang Yueli was facing the first story's opponent and she felt that she was totally stupefied. Early after she heard Huang Zhixiao's warning, She thought that the opponent that she was going to face was an extremely strong opponent, and even if it was just this first story, it would be a powerful practitioner who would be a threat to her. The result was, after she took a careful look, she discovered that the first story opponent was actually a second stage realm 5th level practitioner. Wasn't this a little too weak? She could send a normal second stage realm 5th level practitioner flying with just one move. But considering that this was the almighty ancient god clan's inheritance tower, Huang Yueli felt that she shouldn't take things too simply. This opponent might look weak, but there must be some secret behind it. Perhaps it was to confuse her, so she absolutely cannot undermine the opponent. As Huang Yueli just stood there without moving, the opponent on the opposite side couldn't hold on any longer as he proactively charges towards her. You can also listen on. Hearing the sword sound breaking in empty space ringing, Huang Yueli didn't dare to pretermission and immediately concentrated fully. Her right hand pointed upwards and a burst of flame appeared in her hand. She used around 30% of her profound energy, displaying her profound skill as she attacked towards the opponent. This move of her had a higher percentage of probe, as she mainly wanted to find out what was the secret about the Inheritance Tower's refinement opponent. Why did he look so weak? But she had never expected that the minute she waved that sea of fire towards the opponent's corner of the shirt, the opponent only dodged left and right but didn't manage to evade her attack as he was heavily struck on the chest. Huang Yueli subconsciously added another move, and this time, the opponent totally didn't manage to evade it and directly fainted from her strike. What's the situation? Huang Yueli blinked as she couldn't make head or tail out of this. When she faced this opponent, as compared to ordinary second stage realm 5th level, he indeed was much stronger, and adding on to the cultivation methods and profound skill, his potential had reached second stage realm's peak. But, surely this wasn't comparable with her, right? No matter what, she was a 4th stage realm practitioner. Giving her such an opponent, did that meant to give her a free win intentionally? Just at this moment, a voice counting down rang in the Inheritance Tower. Congratulations, Huang Yueli, you've successfully passed the first story of the Inheritance Tower, using only 6 breaths. In the past 10,000 years among the practitioners who had passed, your rank is 1,500. Your reward is a 5th tier lower grade medicinal pill, a bottle of spirit restoration pill. Please continue to strive for the best. After 10 breaths later, you'll be transported to the second story. Please ready yourself for the next battle. 10, 9, 8, 7. Huang Yueli was shocked because she was ranked 1,500 in the past 10,000 years, and that was indeed an extremely forefront position. In the past, whenever the Inheritance Tower opened yearly, there would be 500 people who took part every time, and after accumulating the amount of people for several thousands of years, there should be a few 100,000 at least. Among so many people, what concept was it to be ranked 1,500? Furthermore, when she just entered, she actually hesitated for a very long period of time. If she had put in her full effort in attacking the opponent, to tell the truth, she might not even need 1 breath's time before she could counter the opponent to obtain victory. In that case, what rank would she be able to achieve? Huang Yueli felt that she was slightly not calm, as she originally thought that the first story of the Inheritance Tower was so easy. But now from her ranking, it was easy to guess that the Inheritance Tower's refinement couldn't possibly be that easy. Otherwise the others would also need at most a few breaths to pass through this stage easily, so how could she possibly obtain such a high ranking? In this case, did that meant that her assessment was especially simple? But why was it like this? There's just no way to explain it. Could it be that because she's a heaven-grade genius? 4, 3, 2, 1, begin. Huang Yueli had yet to make head or tail when she was transported to the middle of the second story. She hurriedly shook her head to drive away all the distracting thoughts in her mind. Stop speculating. Perhaps it's all a coincidence only. What's more, perhaps they gave me an easy opponent first and later on, the difficulty would increase largely, so things are definitely not so easy, so I absolutely cannot undermine the opponent. She warned herself once again as she turned around to face her new opponent. This time, her opponent was actually a second stage 8th level little girl. This lass looked as though she wasn't even 10 years old. Why did she become her opponent? Huang Yueli was standing in the blistering wind in a complete daze. You can also listen on. Even though she had thousands of question marks in her mind, but Huang Yueli already knew this time that the time taken to pass through the round contributed to the ranking, so she didn't hesitate any further as she drew out a long sword from the Sky Phoenix ring and combining it with her fire-attributed profound skill, she directed it towards little Lolita. This little Lolita's potential was indeed much stronger than the previous opponent. Enough though she was only in second stage realm 8th level, but her actual potential could easily challenge a third stage realm 3rd level practitioner. One must know that it was extremely difficult to battle across the realm level, especially if it's crossing over a large realm. To challenge a powerful opponent, only top-rated geniuses could do that. This little Lolita was really worthy of being the Sacred Phoenix Race's appointed refinement opponent. If the person who took part in the refinement had the same cultivation as her, then it would be a difficult task to deal with her. Thinking of this, a thought fleeted past Huang Yueli's mind, but she wasn't able to grasp it. She thought carefully for a while and that little Lolita had already fallen beneath her feet. At the same time, the countdown in the Inheritance Tower was activated once again. Congratulations Huang Yueli, you've successfully passed the second story of the Inheritance Tower, using 40 breaths. In the past 10,000 years among the practitioners who had passed the second story, your rank is 300. Your reward is a 5th-tier upper-grade profound armament, hexapole sword. This time, her ranking had indeed risen. Rank 300, it sounded very incredible, so much that even Huang Yueli was shocked beyond words. She didn't felt that she was that strong. She had not even used 10% of her actual potential. 4, 3, 2, 1, start. The shining glow sparked and Huang Yueli was transported to the third story. In the Inheritance Tower, Hyang Zixiao laid a rug on the ground and sat cross-legged. A flask of wind appeared out of nowhere in his hand as he poured it into a cup and slowly enjoyed it. Little Phoenix sat obediently by his side. Actually, this fellow usually wasn't that obedient, especially when he was with a stranger, all the more he wouldn't behave properly. Only, to be beside this kind of practitioner who was also a spiritual body, and his potential was really much more powerful than him. Just casually pointing would rendered him immovable, so that gave little Phoenix no means of resisting. Alright, after your master had entered the refinement, she will need at least 20 over days before she can come out, so let's just wait here slowly. It needs to be that long? What kind of rubbish refinement is that? How could it possibly take such a long time? Little Phoenix grumbled. Huang Zixiao knocked on its head and said, "What do you know? What I'm saying is under the circumstances that everything is smooth sailing, then she will take 20 over days. I haven't even touched on the situation whereby it's not smooth sailing yet. The difficulty of the refinement in the Inheritance Tower is very high. Just the first story opponent is similar to the refiner's cultivation. After that, in every story the refinement opponent would obviously be on a higher stage than the previous. When it's nearing the end, there is a possibility that she will have to face a practitioner who is higher than her by 2 large realms, and we're talking about those super top experts whose potential are on the forefront among people in their same level. After every story, it will be a bitter battle, so spending over 20 over days isn't anything rare at all. There are some who had spent 100 over days and still not able to come out. Little Phoenix asked curiously, why must they stay inside for 100 over days? If they were seriously injured during the battle, won't they be transported out directly? Huang Zixiao replied, that's under the situation whereby they're so seriously injured that they cannot continue with their battle. If it was merely losing a battle and the refiner could still defend themselves, then as long as they escaped out of the attack boundary of the opponent, then they would not be attacked any further. You can also listen on. During this time, the refiner can raise their own potential through the refinement, or when they have found the opponent's flaws, then they can continue to battle. You should also know that in the midst of a battle, profound skill and cultivation will be raised very quickly. Especially in front of an especially strong opponent's threat, plus the density of the profound chi in the Inheritance Tower is extremely high, so during the process of passing the refinement, there are many practitioners who advance or break through, and through their advancement, they are able to win the stronger opponent. This takes a long period of time and some of them would choose to stay inside to cultivate for a long period of time. But the refinement time is limited and at most, they cannot exceed half a year. If they are not able to pass within half a year, even if they're not seriously injured, they cannot continue staying inside. After Huang Zixiao finished with his explanation, he turned his head and looked at Little Phoenix. He had expected to see its expression filled with worship, but in the end, what he saw was a little bun face which looked as though it had seen a ghost. "What's the matter?" he asked with a frown. Little Phoenix stretched out its short and plump finger as it pointed behind his back. "You, quickly take a look. Why did that door display numbers after my master walked into it?" Huang Zixiao replied, "Numbers represent which story your master is now at. Such a short amount of time and there's already numbers showing, looks like she's already entered the second story. But this is also normal. First story refinement opponent normally are similar to the refiner. Your master is a heaven-grade genius, so she's definitely have no problem." "Heavens, what's going on?" Huang Zixiao was casually explaining in a breezy manner as he turned his head. Originally, his tone was extremely normal, but after he saw the heaven door displaying the number, he looked as though he had been struck by lightning as he stood dumbstruck. It took quite a while before his eyes popped out and shouted, "This! Am I seeing things? The number on this door, could it be 4? Little Phoenix was also bearing a dazed expression. "You didn't see it wrong, because I also saw 4. No, it's 5. Huang Zixiao felt that his breathing was about to stop as his heartbeat palpitated swiftly. He seemed to have witnessed another incredulous miraculous birth once again. But, how could this be possible? How did Huang Yueli managed to enter the 5th story so quickly? This was an even more shocking than her being a heaven-grade genius. Because the second story's refinement opponent was specially matched previously, so Huang Yueli's heaven-grade innate talent actually could not bring her any advantages, but it would increase the difficulty of her refinement. Her opponent would be much more powerful than the others. She should take a longer time than others to pass, wasn't it? However, the truth was shown right in front of their eyes. The door's number was an obvious 5. The inheritance tower could not possibly cheat anyone, and that already explained that Huang Yueli had indeed entered the 5th story of the inheritance tower. But after the 5th story refinement had started, the number on the door had not changed for a very long time. Little Phoenix stared at the door with a daze before turning his head to ask, "Uncle, didn't you say passing the refinement was very difficult? Just one story would require around 1 to 2 days. Why did my master pass so quickly? Have you remembered wrongly or something?" Huang Zixiao didn't know how to reply to him. Because such a situation like Huang Yueli's had long surpassed his imagination. It wasn't like he had not met any heaven-grade geniuses in the past, but none of them were able to do this so skillfully and easily in the heaven-grade's refinement. You can also listen on. "This young lass, where on earth did this perverse lass pop out from?" Little Phoenix asked again. "Since my master can pass so quickly, she would probably be out before the sky turns dark, right?" Huang Zixiao gave him a stare and replied, "How can that be possible? From 5th story onwards, the refinement opponent's cultivation level is higher by exactly 1 large realm. Moreover, heaven-grade genius's opponent are also heaven-grade standard. With the same kind of innate talent, with the opponent's cultivation surpassing by herself by a huge notch, how will she be able to obtain victory so easily? No matter how abnormal she is, she couldn't possibly come out so quickly. What's with that, looking down on others? My master is especially powerful and especially talented, perhaps she might be able to come out." No, Huang Zixiao wanted to say not possible, but recalling that the few theories that he had set down earlier had once and again been thrown back, smacking his face by her astonishing performance, this time round, he didn't dare to assert so absolutely. "Although this possibility is there, but I feel that likely she's not able to. Let's wait till tonight and see how things go." He had chosen a slightly conservative way of saying. In actual fact, Huang Zixiao had not been wrong in the end. When dusk fell, the number on the door had changed from 5 to 6, but Huang Yueli had not came out. Even though he guessed correctly, but the shocking sensation in Huang Zixiao's heart had not become any less. Because Huang Yueli took around 8 hours to pass the 5th story, and if he didn't recall wrongly, The last practitioner who clocked the record was an Earth-grade genius, and the time he left behind was 22 hours. Huang Yueli had already surpassed him and became the record holder for the 5th story. Following that, there were 2 more stories. And the amount of time she spent was already faster than others by half. If this trend continues, if there were no accidents, not only would she be able to pass successfully, she would also be able to break the perfect passing time record directly. Where on heavens could you find such a ridiculous matter? At the present moment, Huang Yueli had already entered the 6th story. In the previous few stories, the first 4 stories' opponents were completely not a threat to her. The 5th story's opponent had created a little mayhem for her. The opponent's cultivation had just entered the 4th stage realm, but as he was a water-attributed practitioner, the clash in the attributes happened to curb Huang Yueli's. Moreover, the opponent had apparently trained God Realm's high-leveled cultivation methods and profound skills. The methods of attacks were extremely crafty, and she had never encountered such moves previously. So she wasn't able to react in time, hence spending a rather long duration tangling with the opponent, before finally defeating the opponent. Ever since she entered the 6th story, Huang Yueli became even more cautious. Because, this time, she truly felt a powerful presence which was enough to threaten her. This was her first time matching up against an opponent whose cultivation level was much higher than hers. 4th stage realm 3rd levels heaven-grade genius. In the Inheritance Tower. Little Phoenix was originally betting with Huang Zixiao delightfully, saying that his master would not need a day before she could pass the 7 stories refinement perfectly. In the end, reality was, after an entire day and night, the number on the door changed from 6 to 7. Little Phoenix lost the bet as its chubby bun face was filled with disappointment, as he kept mumbling. Female devil, aren't you a little weak? Usually when you take the feather duster to beat me, aren't you very powerful? You can also listen on. Why are you now not living up to expectations? You actually made this little master lose the bet. With this, are you even considered as a heaven-grade genius? Little Phoenix continued to nag, and Huang Zixiao was irritated by his incessant chatterings, so he lifted it by the neck and threw him aside. All right, stop nagging, your master is already very powerful. With her current speed, the first 6 stories passing speed, she is already much stronger than the 2nd fastest person by several times. If she's called disappointing, then what should you, a Dysplasia Phoenix, be called? You, who did you say was Dysplasia? Little Phoenix was infuriated. Huang Zixiao didn't say a word, but that rising almond-shaped eyes shot towards Little Phoenix's tummy, which jutted outwards. Little Phoenix quickly took a deep breath and sucked in his tummy, and at the same time stomping his feet. I am storing energy for the sake of growing up. At least I'm not like you, you're already so old, and for several thousands of years, there's no way you can continue developing, so are you jealous of me? He, Huang Zixiao smiled with a profound meaning as he didn't continue. Dare to be disrespectful to a senior like him? He, just wait to say goodbye to chicken drumsticks. Anyway, it was having chicken drumsticks which left to this little fellow being Dysplasia. He taught Huang Yueli the proper way to rear a phoenix, not to give him a hard time, but to help him. Little Phoenix felt his sinister cold stare, and unknowing the reason, it subconsciously shuddered. Why, did it suddenly have an ominous feeling? Congratulations, Huang Yueli, you've successfully passed the 6th story of the Inheritance Tower, using a total of 24 hours. In the past 10,000 years among the practitioners who had passed the 6th story, your rank is number 1. Your reward is... When Huang Yueli heard the countdown voice, she clutched her chest as her heart palpitated furiously. Earlier she took a long time to pass the 6th stage because the 6th stage opponent was out of her expectations. Not only was his cultivation stronger than hers, furthermore, in terms of speed, it was an exceptional talented practitioner. Huang Yueli couldn't catch up with him at all, and in the beginning she tried various methods, trying to get close to him, but all she suffered were losses, without any winning option. Moreover, the opponent was just too fast, so it was very difficult for her to even escape, and there were several times when she was almost struck by the opponent, cutting a sorry state. But after experiencing the first few hours of disorder, she managed to find out an inkling from the opponent's motion. The opponent's speed was indeed very swift, But it wasn't due to the disparity between their cultivations, but purely because the opponent's motion skills were exceptional. Furthermore, this set of profound skill wasn't too difficult. If she had a way to take a clear look, with time to figure it out, she might be able to learn it. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli intentionally provoked the opponent several times more, and while escaping, she observed the opponent displaying the profound skills method. It didn't take long before she mastered the initial steps of this set of motion work. Although she couldn't be matched against the opponent's innate speed and wasn't as experienced as the opponent when utilizing the profound skill, but at least she wouldn't be too far back and had ways to display her own methods, fighting it out with the opponent. After several hours of trial and conclusion, she finally defeated the opponent. In the end, she became the fastest person to pass the 6th story and obtained a reward. It was actually a set of heaven-grade profound skill agility dance steps cultivation scroll. It was until this moment that she found out that the set of cultivation method which she stole from the opponent was the agility dance steps. You can also listen on. Furthermore, what the opponent displayed earlier wasn't just the first level of the profound skill. The real agility dance steps had a total of 7 levels. Only the last level could only be mastered when the cultivation grade had reached 10th stage realm. Golding the cultivation method scroll, Huang Yueli pondered deeply. Looks like this refinement is not just an assessment only, the refinement itself was a chance, and every time we passed a story, those were all assessing the practitioner's comprehension, innate talent and determination, as well as the state of one's psyche to remain calm under pressure. And through various ways deployed to win the opponent, the experience itself was already a kind of reward. So things really is fishy. How could my opponents in the previous stories be possibly so weak? So according to the designer's train of thought for this refinement, each story should have its own meaning to it. But as she had an instant win in those stories, she couldn't tell what the meaning was for those stories. 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. Huang Yueli had yet to find out why when she was sent to the 7th story. At the 7th story, she finally met a real opponent which was of great threat to her, 4th stage realm 5th level's heaven grade genius. Using her 4th stage realm 1st level, going up against a 4th stage realm 5th level. If it was an ordinary 4th stage realm 5th stage practitioner, Huang Yueli wouldn't even bat an eyelid. In the past, when she was only a 2nd stage realm 9th level practitioner, hanging the 4th stage realm imperial tutor upside down and beating him up was already an easy peasy matter to her. Now that she had broken through to 4th stage realm, her potential was much stronger than before. The problem was, the opponent whom she was now facing was a heaven-grade genius just like her. It was only until now that she finally had the chance to find out how strong the God Realm's heaven-grade geniuses were. Facing this kind of opponent, even Huang Yueli was unable to avoid entering a tough battle. During the battle, there were several times when she got injured, but using the agility dance steps initial level skill which she had just acquired, she managed to escape and hid in one corner as she repeatedly comprehended and grasped the experience which she had just obtained from the battle. Not only that, while she was facing extreme conditions during the battle, her cultivation had also hit a breakthrough. Huang Yueli had spent a total of 7 days in the 7th story, and during this period, she had continuously advanced twice, reaching 4th stage realm 3rd stage. Under the fact that her cultivation was merely 2 small realms away from her opponent, and that she had spent exactly 7 days to observe her opponent carefully, Huang Yueli finally accumulated enough knowledge and used it to her advantage as she defeated the opponent. Finally, ended. Huang Yueli heaved a long sigh of relief. Congratulations to refiner Huang Yueli for passing the 2nd stage of heaven grade assessment perfectly. You are the first in 10,000 years to have passed this assessment. Your reward will be awarded by the Inheritance Tower's guardian. 10 breaths later, you will be transported out of this refining mystic region. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Following that, a blinding ray shone and Huang Yueli was once again sent to the bottom of the Inheritance Tower. Right before her was a shocked Huang Zixiao and an agitated little phoenix. You actually did it. You actually passed the heaven grade refinement perfectly, furthermore. So quickly, Huang Zixiao said in disbelief. Huang Yueli's lips arched upwards as she smiled. Small matter, I said long ago that I could do it. She sounded cocky when she said that. If she had said this right before the refinement, Huang Zixiao definitely would silently cursed this youngster for her arrogance and self-satisfaction. But since she only waited till now to say this, he couldn't say a word of rebuttal. You can also listen on. Because she had already used her potential to explain everything, Huang Zixiao was still in disbelief as he looked at Huang Yueli from head to toe, sizing her up as he shook his head and muttered to himself, "How could this be possible? How on earth did you do it? Could it be that your bloodline is purer than those direct descendants? Or is it because of your excellent power of comprehension which no one could match? Strange, this is really too strange." Saying that, he stared at Huang Yueli in the eyes as he questioned, "How on earth did you do it?" The first stage's opponent's potential is a heaven-grade genius who is the same as you, and in every stage following that, the opponent's cultivation would increase significantly. Most people would already expend a huge amount of effort trying to deal with the first opponent. Although there are some cases where the disparity of the practitioners are very huge and could use a few breaths' time to pass through the first stage, but those are top geniuses who failed during the innate testing assessment, and most of them would miss out just by a little to join the next grade, which was why they were able to display such standard in this assessment. However, you're already a heaven-grade genius. Don't tell me you still surpass ordinary heaven-grade geniuses by a huge chunk. When Huang Yueli heard this, she suddenly went into a blank for a moment. You say, the opponent in the first story is a heaven-grade genius whose potential is equivalent to mine? Huang Zixiao failed to understand that. That's right. Why? Don't tell me you didn't feel it. Huang Yueli was shocked, but she managed to shut her mouth in time, not telling Huang Zixiao the truth. Because when she first entered the refining mystic region, the opponent she met on the first story was so weak that he collapsed at the first blow. It was until the fifth story's opponent before he could barely battle her for a longer period of time. According to Huang Zixiao's interpretation, her first story opponent should be a fifth story's potential. Why? Was her opponent so weak then? Just at this moment, she suddenly recalled that right before she started her refinement, Huang Zixiao told her this. Don't blame me for not reminding you. The difficulty of this stage is related to your age and not comparable to your actual potential. To tell the truth, you're going to turn 15 but still at an early stage of fourth stage realm cultivation. As compared to our sacred phoenix race in ancient times, your cultivation is considered low. The enemies you encounter when you enter now will be much stronger than what you can imagine. Her opponent had nothing to do with her potential, but related to her age. Huang Zixiao thought that her cultivation wasn't enough because she was going to turn 15 soon, but her cultivation was only at fourth stage realm. To a god realm's heaven-grade genius, this cultivation speed was really slow. But what Huang Zixiao didn't knew was, she just started cultivating barely half a year ago, and in her past 14 years, she was a trash who didn't had any profound energy. Perhaps, Huang Zixiao's understanding of the Inheritance Tower's refining regulations wasn't too clear. The refining opponent's difficult, to put it more precisely, wasn't in accordance to her age, but according to the number of years of cultivation. To God Realm's top geniuses, they started cultivation at the age of 4 or 5, and that was a commonly seen thing, so by the time they reach 14 or 15 years old, they had already cultivated for almost 10 years. Only at fourth stage realm, indeed wasn't outstanding at all. But, what if one had only cultivated for less than a year? Less than a year, and already advanced into fourth stage realm, shocking should be the word to describe this. And the refining opponents whom she met were accorded based on her cultivation time, so naturally they would be much, much weaker than her. You can also listen on. An enlightened expression finally appeared on Huang Yueli's face. In this way, all the strange things that she had met with earlier were all explainable. How is it? Why are you not saying a word? Huang Zixiao urged. Huang Yueli's eyeballs rolled as she smiled. I can't remember what my first story opponent was like, but he simply felt too weak. Just like what you guessed, looks like as compared to ordinary heaven-grade geniuses, I'm really much more powerful than them. Huang Zixiao was rendered speechless as saying that was equivalent to not saying anything at all. But saying that, if she was really so strong to such an extent, then defeated the opponent who was much weaker than her indeed didn't take much effort. To describe how she had one was indeed a tough thing to do. In this way, could it be that this unremarkable young lass really had the innate talent to crush all the other geniuses among the sacred phoenix race? Huang Yueli took a look at his confused expression as her lips curled upwards, but she kept silent, letting his imagination run wild. Actually, what she had said earlier was not to trick Huang Zixiao. Because she was able to use a time frame of less than a year before she was able to attain at the same cultivation level as the other heaven-grade geniuses, who had spent many years, although there were other elements mixed in this, but in totality, this also proved that she indeed was much stronger than the other geniuses. At least in terms of cultivation speed, she seemed to be much more outstanding, shining above the others. She paused for a moment before she switched topics. That's right, Senior, since I've already passed the second stage of refinement perfectly, then am I entitled to a reward? You know, if it wasn't for the advantages, I wouldn't take part in some refinement. Huang Zixiao took a helpless glance at her, as he almost forgot that this young lass was not only an incomprehensible genius, she also had an incomprehensible money grubber. Of course you'd have a part of the reward, follow me. Saying that, Huang Zixiao waved his hand and a large door appeared in midair once again, as he led Huang Yueli into it. Huang Yueli walked in and took a look and felt slightly surprised. She had thought that behind this door was a treasure vault, pill refining room, or at worst, a secret room. In the end, there was actually a huge hot spring and the water within gave out a strange crimson color, and it was obviously boiling hot, as smoke kept fuming out. What is this? Huang Zixiao replied, this is your reward for scoring perfectly in the second stage of refinement. Huang Yueli went into a blank, But, how am I supposed to take this back? Hearing that, Huang Zixiao's eyebrow twitched as he replied in a sarcastic tone, still want to bring this back, keep wishing. The reward that you have won is to soak in it once. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes and following that, she made an action which showed that she was spitting up blood. What on earth? I've expended so much energy, risking my life to pass through so many stages. In the end just let me soak in this once. This deal feels like I've lost out a big deal. This scheming merchant tone made Huang Zixiao almost lose his calm as he tried his best to tone himself down. Looks like you're despising this. Since you don't want to soak in it, then forget it. There are plenty of people who can't wait to grab this opportunity. What do you think is in this hot spring? Just ordinary spring water? Surely not to that extent, right? I think, probably some spirit spring in the god realm? Huang Yueli guessed. Huang Zixiao sneered, spirit spring water? Don't belittle the sacred phoenix race. You can also listen on. How would the sacred phoenix race use that measly thing as a reward? Although God Realm indeed has a god-grade spirit spring which could improve one's cultivation by leaps and bounds, but this hot spring water is much more valuable than that kind of spirit spring. Hearing that, Huang Yueli's spirits was lifted immediately. Really? What kind of water is this? Since Huang Zixiao didn't even care about the god-grade spirit spring water, it went to show that this reward really was very valuable. Huang Zixiao used the corner of his eyes as he shot a glance at little Phoenix who was tugging at Huang Yueli's hem as he slowly revealed the answer. This is Phoenix's blood. What? He had just finished his last word when two shocked voices were heard ringing at the same time. Huang Yueli's tone was shocked and joyous, as the expression in her eyes immediately turned different. How valuable was the Phoenix, a spiritual beast's blood, that didn't require anyone to tell her. Anyone knew that if they could use a spiritual beast, like the true dragon or true Phoenix's blood to clean their entire body, the effect was to cleanse their meridians and expand their arteries, giving a huge leap to their physique. To a practitioner, their usual way of cultivation was mainly to absorb the heaven and earth's profound qi, using it to expand their arteries and expanding their dantian, but towards their own physical bodies, to improve it through cultivation was very difficult. Although there were specialized ways to strengthen their bodies using some secret cultivation methods, but the effect was not as good as compared to cultivating profound qi. So although everyone knew that it was important to strengthen their own bodies, but there seemed to be no way to do so. Because to strengthen one's physical body, they mainly needed to use some rare treasures, but those were something which they hoped to obtain but could not wished for. Whereas among these rare treasures, The most valuable of it all were spiritual beasts' blood. Of course, there was no longer any more spiritual beasts in Soaring Heaven's continent, so using the spiritual beast's blood to strengthen one's body, this only existed in ancient manuals and legends. But now, Huang Yueli was facing a pool of phoenix blood, furthermore, such a huge pool of it. Not only could she use it to clean her body, she could even soak in it. Just what concept was this? Huang Yueli felt that she was in a dream. She only had one thought right now: sacred phoenix race was indeed a true god realm aristocrat. The definition of this was called rich and imposing. Just as Huang Yueli was getting excited, little Wang Cai's heart was filled with shock and fury. He used his sharp and tender little Shota voice to scream out loud, "What? How could you be like this? How can you kill phoenixes and let out their blood? How could such a cruel, terrifying and scary matter happen? This is an absolute humiliation and maltreatment to us phoenix race." He was feeling indignant at injustice as his little body started to shake entirely. Huang Yueli had yet been able to pacify him in time when Huang Zixiao opened his mouth. "Why? We killed phoenixes and let out their blood. What can you do about it? Cry out some more. Beware that I'll kill you as well and let out your blood. You dash." Little Wang Cai shook even more violently, as though it was about to faint at any moment. Huang Yueli helplessly rolled her eyes as she said, "Senior, earlier when I was in the refinement, had my little Wang Cai offended you somehow? Please stop scaring him, he's still young, and isn't used to be scared." She didn't believe that the sacred phoenix race would kill phoenixes and let out their blood. After all, this clan used phoenix as part of its name, and furthermore there were often heaven-grade geniuses who could contract phoenixes, so that meant that sacred phoenix race and the phoenix race's relation should be rather good. Huang Zixiao had said those, obviously intentionally, so she didn't know what trouble the little fellow Wang Cai had gotten into again. You can also listen on. Huang Zixiao gave a humph and he lectured, "This phoenix of yours is really trashy, all because of how you have pampered him. I have a book here, Guide to Raising a Phoenix. Later before you leave, I'll give it to you, so bring it back and learn from it properly." Huang Yueli immediately replied, "Okay, that's just great. I'm grateful to Senior." She had long suspected why her little phoenix didn't grow up, so it's because the method which she reared it wasn't correct. Huang Zixiao was so generous to send her a book on rearing phoenixes, such a good thing, it would be weird if she didn't agree to it. Although she knew that it was because of her outstanding potential, so Huang Zixiao was trying to entice her, but Huang Yueli was still rather grateful. But little Wang Cai, on hearing these words, seemed to be standing on an empty field as the skies were filled with lightning, and it had just struck onto his head as he was struck dumb. Finished, it's all finish. Earlier that evil-intentioned old man said he should be eating chicken drumsticks, and now he even gave female devil a guidebook on how to rear phoenixes. There was no need to even think, to know that there must be several ways in it on how to torture it. Female devil was already malicious enough, and how with this guide to rearing a phoenix, his future days? Will there still be any good days to pass? But, not waiting for little Wang Cai to protest, Huang Zixiao suddenly changed topics as he pointed to the red water and said, "This is real phoenix blood, but it wasn't obtained by hunting for phoenixes. 10,000 years ago, the sacred phoenix race's clan leader had contracted an extremely powerful phoenix spiritual beast. But the clan leader had unfortunately died in a battle within the god realm. His phoenix didn't want to live alone, so it decided to end its own life. Before its death, it agreed to donate all its blood to the sacred phoenix race. That year, sacred phoenix race wasn't as strong as it is now. This phoenix blood pool was one of the flourishing reliance that we had. Numerous arrays were set up around its surroundings, and using a huge amount of rare treasure, did we manage to ensure that the phoenix blood pool staying intact even after 10,000 years, and even till today, its major effect to cleanse meridians and strengthen artery." Huang Yueli's expression was filled with admiration. This is so incredible. But little Wang Cai, however, still put on a look which didn't believe in him as it questioned, "Who are you trying to bluff? One phoenix had that much blood. How many phoenixes did you all murder to obtain such a big pool of blood? Or should it be said, after murdering the phoenix, then considered as donation?" Huang Zixiao shot him a glance filled with disdain as he sneered, "You think all phoenixes are suffering from dysplasia like you? To tell you the truth, a true matured phoenix, its wings extends to several thousand miles, and when it's soaring up into the sky, it's all ready to hide the sky and cover the earth, extremely overbearing. This is just a portion of the phoenix blood which was left by that phoenix. A large portion of it is stored away in Godrealm's clan. If every phoenix were like you, would they even dare to be called as a spiritual beast? What difference are you from those mother hens who other people rear in their backyards? You, little Wang Xiai had thought that its questions were witty, but it had not expected to be looked down upon, and got so worked up that it almost fainted. Huang Yueli saw that both of them were not on the same page and deeply worried that they might start arguing again, so she caught Little Phoenix and threw him back into the Sky Phoenix ring. In this way, they weren't able to argue, but after Little Phoenix was confined, he was overturning the skies inside as he tried his hardest, hooting about in the Sky Phoenix ring, asking Huang Yueli to let him out immediately. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli pretended not to hear anything as she turned around and asked Huang Zixiao, "Then, can I go into the water right now?" Huang Zixiao nodded. "You can soak yourself for however long you want to, but a person's body's absorption towards phoenix blood is limited. After you reach the limit, there wouldn't be any more effect for the time being, so by then, you can come out." Huang Yueli nodded, "I understand." Huang Zixiao turned around to leave, leaving her alone in the phoenix blood pool. Huang Yueli didn't waste any time as she directly took off her outer robe and jumped into the phoenix blood pool. She had originally braced herself that soaking in the phoenix blood would be a especially terrible feeling. After all, the past few medicinal baths which she had soaked in were basically like that. The more the effect, the more difficult the process of the bath. But reality made her slightly surprised. Because phoenix blood was actually very mild, although the water temperature was very high, but it was still within the limits of an ordinary person. Huang Yueli sat within the pool and felt as though she had returned to an infant. That warm and sticky fluid enveloped her entire body. Following that, meticulous energy started to flow into her body through every pore in her body. Initially, she felt a little ticklish, but gradually, that slight feeling became more and more intense, it turning into pain, and furthermore, it was getting more and more painful. Even though she was in extreme pain, but Huang Yueli's consciousness was still extremely clear. Her skin continuously peeled off and continuously grew out, as though a phoenix rebirth, obtaining new life. This process was extremely long, and the intense tickling and pain repeatedly switched, as though there was no end. It had been after quite a long amount of time, when Huang Yueli felt the feeling of her body becoming numb, whereas the profound energy within her became strangely abundant, as it followed her meridians, gushing up continuously towards her dantian. The profound energy went round all the meridians in her body. Every time it went one round, it intensified by 1%. The layers piled up and accumulated in the dantian finally broke through the advancement checkpoint. 4th stage realm, 4th level. 4th stage realm, 5th level. 4th stage realm, 6th level. Huang Yueli could distinctly felt that the profound energy within her body becoming stronger and stronger, and that swelling feeling was about to crack open her dantian. Her advancement speed was very fast, and while she was still suffering from fuzzy consciousness, she had already advanced continuously for 3 small realms. After that, the profound energy within her meridians was still accumulating, but the speed seemed to have slowed down a little, and after another long period of time, she slowly stepped into 4th stage realm 7th level. Right after this, the increasing speed of her profound energy had once again slowed down, slower and slower, slower and slower. Until finally, her profound energy almost stopped growing, but she was quite a distance from 4th stage realm 8 levels checkpoint. Huang Yueli suddenly opened her eyes as a cold glint flashed past her eyes. She felt that she should still have enough energy, and was still able to advance, and had not reached her limit, but why did she stop here? Suddenly, she thought of something and held out both her hands to get a handful of water, as she raised her head and sent it into her mouth. Phoenix blood followed her throat and flowed into her body, her lower abdomen, and instantly a scorching feeling was felt. Initially, the temperature was very low, just barely swelling up, but slowly, the energy from the phoenix blood was unleashed and her body became hotter and hotter. Ooh! Huang Yueli's forehead cringed tightly, as she couldn't help but gave a low moan. You can also listen on. Just as her body was about to be torn apart by that scorching hot sensation, Phoenix Blood's energy suddenly exploded, turning into shreds, entering her meridians. Huang Yueli felt an indescribable pain tormenting her forelimbs and skeletal bones. Her meridians and skeletal bones seemed to be crushed inch by someone, then fixed together again inch by inch, repeatedly occurring. This pain was much more serious by 100 times than just purely soaking herself in the Phoenix Blood. However, Huang Yueli wasn't panic-stricken. Instead, a sliver of a smile appeared on her face. This went to show that the Phoenix Blood in her body changed it from inside to outside. As compared to from outside to inside, it was much more effective, and much more dangerous. From the inner part of the body to reconstruct her meridians. Furthermore, such an intense method, if there was any accident, then her dantian would burst apart, leaving in a dire consequence. This was also the reason why Huang Zixiao only allowed her to soak in the Phoenix Blood and not drink it. Because the risk is simply too huge. As the spokesperson for Sacred Phoenix Race, Huang Zixiao didn't want the clan's top-rated heaven-grade genius to take this kind of risk. However, even though she knew that such a risk existed, Huang Yueli still drank the Phoenix Blood without any hesitation. Because no one knew her own condition better than herself. After experiencing various matters in the Inheritance Tower, she had already confirmed that this body's innate talent had exceeded everyone's imagination, simply to the point of heaven-defying. The Phoenix Blood was provocative yet intense, but she should be able to take it. As long as she had enough determination, she should be able to get over it. Although she had this confidence, but the process was extremely hard to endure. Huang Yueli laid in the Phoenix Blood pool semi-consciously. Her consciousness was sometimes clear, and sometimes blurry. After God knows how long later, she finally felt the intense pain within her body's inner portion gradually subsiding, and her meridians had been widened while the profound energy within had been compressed, causing it to become purer than before. At the same time, profound energy in the meridians flowed much quicker as it started rushing towards her dantian. 4th stage realm, 8th level. This checkpoint had been passed by easily. Profound energy continued to flow, as the speed became faster and faster. 4th stage realm, 9th level. Profound energy kept accumulating, and very quickly, she reached the peak of 4th stage realm. Huang Yueli knew that, at this point in time, she must muster up all her strength to continue breaking through to 5th stage realm. There was a certain rate of success. But she didn't do that. Instead, she stopped the flow of her profound energy as she calmed her heart to congeal qi, as she started solidifying her own cultivation. Ever since she entered the Inheritance Tower, these days, she had continued to advance repeatedly. This kind of advancement speed was simply too fast, so fast that it was ridiculously perverted. In this way, her cultivation would become unstable easily as her foundation wasn't stable. Then she would not be able to bring out the corresponding grade of potential which she should have. Furthermore, there was a possibility that it would affect her future cultivation speed. In the past, although her cultivation speed was fast, but she was after all a 3rd stage realm low-leveled practitioner, so no matter how unstable her foundation was, the influence wasn't that great. From the 4th stage realm peak to 5th stage realm, that was a huge realm promotion. You can also listen on. Such a short span of time, to continuously promote 2 large realms, no matter what, it was just too fast. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli coerced herself to stop absorbing the energy, but chose to continue staying in the Phoenix Blood pool to solidify her cultivation. After some time, Huang Yueli felt her own cultivation stabilizing, and since there was no more effect of Phoenix Blood to her, she sat there and felt no different as when she was soaking in an ordinary hot spring. Huang Yueli recalled that Huang Zixiao telling her that a person's body towards Phoenix Blood absorption was limited in a short period of time. Looked like even if she continued to soak in this, the effect wouldn't get any better. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli climbed out of the pool, as she clearly understood that it was now time for her to leave. But turning back to take a look at that pool of lustrous colors, Phoenix Blood which emitted a powerful presence of energy, Huang Yueli really couldn't move her feet. So much Phoenix Blood, and its effect was so good, but yet she could not take it away. Wait, perhaps it wasn't that she could not take it away. Huang Yueli's eyes shone as she opened up the Sky Phoenix ring. Little Phoenix had been throwing a tantrum for several days, wanting to come out. When it finally saw Huang Yueli opening the Sky Phoenix ring, it instantly got agitated as it pounced towards her. Female devil, you've finally found your conscience. Willing to let me go out and play already? Huang Yueli replied, This going out to play can wait till slightly later. Help me get all the containers and tubs which can be used to contain stuff out. I must try all possibilities to save a little phoenix blood. Little Phoenix instantly deflated as it turned around and used its butt to face her. MPF, you only know how to ask me to work and not feed me chicken drumsticks, not allowing me to go out and play too. I don't want to work for free. Forget it if you don't wish to help. Anyway, you're so fat, you don't have much energy, so I think you're probably not of any help anyway. Huang Yueli shot him a look of disdain as she held 2 bathtubs, running out to fill it with blood. Very quickly, Phoenix blood filled all the wooden bathtubs in the Sky Phoenix ring and neatly lined up into a long straight line, right under the room's windowsill. Huang Yueli nodded her head in satisfaction as she touched her chin, secretly planning, Phoenix blood, a drop of it is priceless. There's so many tubs here, if I bring it out to auction. Wow, how much would it be worth? But she was also clear that the more priceless treasure was, the more it shouldn't be shown to others, otherwise, it wouldn't just be money which she would be getting, but also fatal disaster. Her experience in her past life was the best example. Even if she had absolute ability to crush everyone, but she would still meet with various kinds of harassment. Sigh, looks like selling it for money is not going to do, so I better keep it for myself. I wonder how long should I wait before using it for the second time? Right, when I return, I can let the handsome dude at home soak in it as well, and I can also see the good-looking man come out from his bath. Hehe. The minute Huang Yueli recalled the last time she saw Li Moying's sturdy and firm chest and that vaguely visible 8-pack muscles, her senses started floating. Little Phoenix was propping up his chin as he watched her from the sides, and questioned out in curiosity, Yi? Female devil, why is your saliva dripping down? Have you dreamt of some good food? What flavored chicken drumstick is that? Huang Yueli touched the corners of her lips when she heard his question, and she really felt some dampness. Her face flushed red as she threw Little Phoenix into the Sky Phoenix ring. You can also listen on. Page. What kinda lousy spiritual pet was it? It had no ability to make discerning judgments and still dared to ridicule its master. Continue to stay in confinement. Huang Yueli had just kept the phoenix blood and changed into a new set of clothes as she left the room. Huang Zixiao was just outside the door, waiting for her. Seeing Huang Yueli coming out, he looked at her from head to toe as he gave a surprised expression. You're finally out, you actually stayed in the phoenix blood pool for such a long time, I almost thought something happened to you. Now it looks like you've benefited a lot from this phoenix blood pool. From 4th stage realm 3rd level, you advanced to 4th stage peak? Huang Yueli smiled as she asked, why? Have I broken the record again? Huang Zixiao said, that isn't so. Phoenix blood's strengthening effect differs on each individual. Some effects are especially good, even possible to leap over 2 large realms. But as your previous cultivation speed was slow, 14 or 15 years old and still have not advanced to 4th stage realm, so now you suddenly advanced so quickly, so that made me slightly surprised. Huang Yueli gave a dry cough. Heh, in the past I have not been cultivating properly. She didn't tell him about her cultivating for just 1 year, as instinct told her that this shocking matter would be better be left as her ace. Huang Zixiao continued, now you know how good the Inheritance Tower's rewards are. Now that you've passed the 2nd stage of Heaven grade assessment perfectly, then when you reach 9th stage realm, you can come to the Inheritance Tower once again and accept the 3rd stage refinement. If your refinement succeeds, you'd obtain an even better reward. Of course, that includes the chance to enter the Phoenix blood pool again. Huang Yueli blinked, thinking to herself that she had already collected a huge pool of Phoenix blood in the Sky Phoenix ring, so she had a guilty conscience. She had already taken so much Phoenix blood, and whether she had the second chance to enter the Phoenix blood pool, it didn't seem that important now. Only this resourceful thinking, surely she wasn't the only one who had thought about it, right? Huang Yueli was puzzled, so she might as well have tried to probe to get the answer. Senior, earlier when I was in the Phoenix blood pool, you didn't keep an eye on me. Aren't you afraid that I'd steal some Phoenix blood? Huang Zixiao was stunned for a moment, then subsequently, as though he had heard an especially funny joke, he started laughing out loud. Ha ha ha. I say, young lass, aren't you thinking just a little too much? Actually, you can try to keep some Phoenix blood into your realm ring earlier. Then you'd know that this is practically impossible. Ah. Why? Huang Yueli went blank. Huang Zixiao replied, because Phoenix blood is an existence which is much higher than God relic, so ordinary realm rings practically aren't able to contain the pressure from the Phoenix blood, so it's caused the space to distort, thereby causing the realm ring to shatter directly. Want to put the Phoenix blood into a realm ring and bring it out? That's just a beautiful wish. Phoenix blood can only be stored in a higher leveled existence than a God relic. For example, this inheritance tower. Huang Yueli was stunned. So that's the case, I've gained more knowledge again. Although she said that, but her heartbeat was starting to speed up. Realm ring would directly shatter when it meets Phoenix blood. Some higher leveled existence than God relic could store the Phoenix blood. Then why had she easily stored the Phoenix blood into the Sky Phoenix ring? Linking it to her innate testing earlier, her profound energy was depleted, and the Sky Phoenix ring unleashed a gust of energy, helping her pass the difficult juncture. You can also listen on. Heavens, what kind of thing was the Sky Phoenix ring? She died in her past life because of the Sky Phoenix ring, so this wasn't strange at all. Huang Zixiao didn't notice the abnormality in her as he continued talking. Now do you understand? Young lass, your innate talent might be high, but after all you grew up in Soaring Heaven's continent, so your knowledge cannot be compared to the direct descendants in God Realm. Inheritance Tower had some books which came from God Realm, so now it should be lost in Soaring Heaven's continents, right? Later on, get some books and go back to read it, in case if you ascend to God Realm in future, you'd be a laughing stock. Huang Yueli nodded and suddenly thought of something, as she asked excitedly, that's right, Senior, do you have any books here related to armament refining? Armament refining? Why are you asking about this? Are you an armament master? Huang Zixiao's eyebrow rose. Huang Yueli nodded. Huang Zixiao didn't find it strange at all. Sacred Phoenix race was a fire-attributed clan, whereas pill refining and armament refining all required high fire-attributed innate talents to achieve some accomplishments, so there were many high-leveled armament masters and pill masters in Sacred Phoenix race. And this was one of the reasons why the Sacred Phoenix race could stay strong for so many years. But he advised, there are many books on armament refining and the Inheritance Tower has quite a few. Since there are few who can come to the Inheritance Tower, I shall give all these books to you. But although armament refining is broad and deep, but your cultivation innate talent is much better. You have a boundless future in front of you, so don't waste too much energy on armament refining, this kinda sideline. Pay more attention to your cultivation, and just dabble a little on armament refining. Huang Yueli nodded as she replied, all right, I understand. She knew that Huang Zixiao had his logic. Mu Chengying in his past life said similar things, so he never bothered wasting any time to research on these skills. But armament refining was Huang Yueli's interest and was something which she loved doing the most. She wouldn't bear to give it up. Both of them talked for a while, and Huang Yueli found out quite a number of information regarding the Sacred Phoenix race from Huang Zixiao. Huang Zixiao probably hadn't met any living humans for a long time, so when they were chatting, he told her everything he knew and couldn't stop talking, as he also told her a lot of gossips regarding the God Realm. On seeing that it wasn't early anymore, Huang Yueli said, Senior, this time I'm really grateful for your help. But I have something which I need to settle outside the Inheritance Tower, so I'm afraid that I won't be able to stay here any longer. I wish to leave earlier. Huang Zixiao shook his head, you can't leave now. Why? Didn't you take a careful look at the contents when you got the treasure map? As the density of the profound chi in Soaring Heaven's continent is too low, the Inheritance Tower doesn't have enough energy, so it has always been in an invisible mode. Every 49 days would it appear in the continent once. And only when the Inheritance Tower appears would you be able to leave. Huang Zixiao explained. Huang Yueli immediately showed her disappointment. Her? How can it be like this? Don't tell me that I need to wait for another 10 over days. Huang Zixiao took a look at her. 10 over days. Don't need to wait that long, just another 2 days, and you'd be able to leave the day after. Huang Yueli was stunned. Ah? But didn't you say this earlier, that the inheritance tower would only appear every 49 days? Wait a minute, don't tell that I've already stayed in the tower for 40 over days already. You can also listen on. Huang Zixiao laughed as he continued. Why? Did you just realized? When you just entered the inheritance tower, you were in lethargic sleep for 5 to 6 days due to being heavily injured, and while passing the second round of refinement, you spent another 8 to 9 days. Later on in the Phoenix blood pool, you spent another 30 over days, so adding it all up, it's already been 47 days. Huang Yueli's elegant brows creased tightly, as she expressed an anxious look. I've actually spent so much time, and I had no feeling at all. By the time I go out, wouldn't everything be in chaos? She suddenly disappeared and had not appeared for more than 40 days. This matter should have gone to Li Moying's ears by now. She wondered if he would be anxious over her. She thought, that must be the case. Because that man, no matter in the past life or not, had never changed. Even if she rejected him numerous times, but he had never remained indifferent towards her matters. As long as she's in danger or something happened to her, he would always be the first to be there. That day she left Celestial Light Academy in a hurry, leaving alone by herself, was so that she would undo the misunderstanding between the both of them, but not to make him anxious. Huang Zixiao saw her ever-changing expressions as his lips slowly curled into a smile. Why? Look at your anxious look. It's normal for a practitioner going into closed-door cultivation to take several years. You've just gone missing for a month and already so worried to this state? Is there a need? What major thing has happened outside that requires a young lass like you to go and settle? Ah! About that, Huang Yueli bit her lips. Huang Zixiao felt that his guess was correct. Anxious to go meet your lover? Huang Yueli's face flushed red upon hearing his correct guess. What lover? He's just a friend. A living person like me disappearing into thin air. A lot of friends would be worried for me. Huang Zixiao sniggered. Don't attempt to lie to an elderly. After all, I've lived longer than you for 10,000 years. I've seen plenty of love-smitten young lass like you. What kind of person do you like? How is his innate talent? Since he had already guessed correctly, Huang Yueli didn't try to hide any further as she replied. His, very handsome, very strong, and treats me real well. Huang Zixiao replied, strong is a must, otherwise would a heaven-grade genius like you even consider him? But, don't blame me for not reminding you. Whether he's strong now or not, it doesn't matter. The crux is his innate talent cannot be too lousy. You're probably not clear, but a heaven-grade genius like you who appears once every 10,000 years, in the future when you go to God Realm, the clan would absolutely arrange a suitable partner for you, not wishing that you marry into other clan. If the person whom you like has powerful innate talent, perhaps the sacred phoenix race will be willing to let him marry into the family, but if your innate talent's disparity is too far apart, then you'd be separated in the end. Huang Yueli blinked, not believing that she had heard such things. It seemed that ever since she had been reborn, everyone kept saying that she wasn't worthy of Li Moying, so this was the first time she heard anyone saying Li Moying wasn't worthy of her. Furthermore, he said if he had the innate talent then there'd be hopes for him to marry into the family. It was unimaginable for such an arrogant man like Li Moying to marry into the family. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli's mind suddenly popped out an image of Li Moying following behind her, like her little wife, as she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Huang Zixiao saw that she actually laughed, and felt that she totally didn't sense the seriousness of this problem. You can also listen on. Don't think I'm cracking a joke. The clans in God Realm all look upon innate talent as the most important factor. Huang Yueli smiled, as she said, Senior, thank you for reminding me. But the person I like had much higher innate talent than me. I feel that we're very compatible, so no one should even consider tearing us apart. Don't say Li Moying's innate talent was much higher than hers. Even if it was lower than hers, she would not possibly separate from him because of this. Whether the clan agreed or not, she did not care. At most they won't go to God Realm. Youngsters, Huang Zhixiao sighed. He didn't believe in Huang Yueli's words because based on the current condition in soaring heaven's continent, to appear a heaven-grade genius like her was already an unbelievable thing. How would there be a man who had a better innate talent than her? To tell the truth, he felt that beauty was in the eyes of the beholder, and Huang Yueli had valued this man too much. That man probably had a much better innate talent than ordinary practitioners, but at most he'd only be Earth grade. No, not to mention Earth grade, if he could reach the forefront position of human grade, it would already be an achievement. But, now that this young lass was head over heels for him, no matter what he said wouldn't be of any use. When the days went by, once their cultivation distance was pulled apart, then she would naturally understood. Huang Zhixiao didn't continue talking, but brought Huang Yueli to the inheritance tower's ancient books chamber. Seeing the bookshelves being neatly arranged into rows and rows of God-grade ancient books which were only available in God realm, Huang Yueli got excited as she completely threw the earlier conversation behind her and concentrated on selecting the secret manuals. But Huang Zhixiao had agreed upon something in advance. Sacred Phoenix race had their own regulations. She could only pick 3 books for cultivation methods and profound skills related to cultivation, but since there were much lesser people who wanted armament refining books, as she was a heaven-grade genius, he allowed her to select more books from there. The next 2 days, Huang Yueli spent all her time in the ancient books chamber. As she already had a top-rated 9 Phoenix transformation cultivation method, so the 3 ancient books which she selected was all on profound skill, a book on attack, a book on defense and a book to increase her attack speed, including the bodywork's profound skill which she obtained in the 6th story of the refinement. If she managed to master them all, then her all-rounder potential would be lifted up to a different plate. Besides that, she selected another 5 ancient books related to armament refining. It wasn't that she didn't want to take any more, but it was because she couldn't understand most of the portions. God Realm's armament refining ancient books were all used to refine God relics. Her current attainment still wasn't there yet, so there were still many places which she needed to raise up. Other than that, before she left, Huang Zhixiao also passed her that guide to rearing a phoenix which he had promised earlier. Little Phoenix was watching by the side and was so anxious that it started stomping its feet, attempting to use its sharp beak to tear the pages. Luckily Huang Yueli managed to evade in time. She threw Little Phoenix back to the Sky Phoenix ring before retrieving the book to take a look. Suitable food to feed phoenixes: fire-attributed spiritual grass, fire-attributed magical beast cores, little amount of fire-attributed magical beast meat. Try to cook it lightly, avoid feeding different attributed magical beasts meat, ordinary meat, no frying or roasting. Alright, I'm in the wrong, I shouldn't have given Wang Cai roasted chicken drumsticks. In order to let your infant phoenix grow up healthily, you must make it fly for 100 miles and above daily, and at the same time, under a dense fire-attributed environment, cultivate for 6 hours daily. Wang Cai seemed to have never cultivated before. Huang Yueli was flipping the book in her hands, and she muttered to herself while repenting. You can also listen on. Sigh, it's all my fault, affecting Wang Cai's growth. I will correct this and have stricter demands towards him. Little Phoenix shared her sentiments, so although it was shut in the Sky Phoenix ring, it could still hear her words. Momentarily, he was so anxious that he almost cried. Finished, it's all finished this time. His good days were coming to an end. No more roasted chicken drumsticks, and he had to fly 100 miles daily and cultivate for 6 hours. Oh my heavens! Torturing a phoenix? Boo-hoo-hoo, no. Female devil, I don't want to be separated from my chicken drumsticks. Don't treat me in this way, I promise to be obedient in future. Little Phoenix's wailing that sounded like ghosts and that howling that sounded like wolves were totally ignored by that heartless female master of his. Huang Yueli kept all the secret manuals properly, and looking at the time, it was already the 49th night, so she bade Huang Zhixiao farewell as she left the inheritance tower. Huang Zhixiao stared blankly into space after she departed as he felt deeply moved. This kind of heaven-grade genius, not born in God Realm's direct descendant, but born here in the abandoned soaring heavens continent. He started pondering about the final outcome. How would it turn out? A gold light flashed in front of Huang Yueli's eyes and the scenery changed. It was no longer the inheritance tower's never-changing decor, but she was now in the inner portion of the huge stone array once again. Ah! Finally out at last. Huang Yueli stretched her body as an excited smile spread on her face. I've been in that inheritance tower for so long, every day just staying in that small room, I'm almost going to be bored to death. It's really hard on Huang Zixiao senior uncle, he could actually stay there for more than 10,000 years. So pitiful. Saying that, she seemed to have thought of something. Forgot to ask senior why was he sealed within the inheritance tower. Next time we meet, I must ask him why, perhaps there might be a chance to let him out. I feel that it's impossible that anyone wants to be stuck in that broken tower, right? This time she was inside the inheritance tower for over a month and the benefits she reaped was simply huge. But now wasn't the right time to reminisce and sort it out, she had better hurry over to Celestial Light Sect to meet Li Moying first. She wondered if Li Moying had already gotten news of her disappearance. No matter what, she had to hurry and meet him first. As Huang Yueli was letting her imagination run wild, at the same time, she retrieved the treasure map from the Sky Phoenix ring. Found it. With this treasure map, I don't need to let out my blood anymore. She lowered her head and read the map, and she strode towards the huge stone array's entrance. But just at this moment, she heard a gust of broken air coming from her back. Huang Yueli immediately reacted and turned sideways to evade. Turning back, she saw a man with disheveled hair, filled with blood and mud, half sprawling on the ground, as he bore his fangs at her sinisterly. Huang Yueli was stunned for a moment before she responded, You are Ling Wenbin. Ling Wenbin's current outlook couldn't be described with just a mere miserable word. Both of his legs, from knee down, were completely cut off. That should be the consequence from trying to rush into Inheritance Tower previously. So at this moment, he could only use his palms to support himself on the ground. As he moved, that look totally hid the saintly demeanor that he had in the past as Celestial Light Academy's vice principal. Besides that, Huang Yueli also discovered that Ling Wenbin's cultivation had dropped down by a huge notch. From 7th stage realm 2nd level, it dropped directly to 6th stage realm 2nd level, dropping by an entire large realm. You can also listen on. It looked like he had suffered heavy losses during the battle at the Inheritance Tower's entrance. The look which Ling Wenbin gave Huang Yueli was filled with malicious hatred. Little slut, how dare you still come out? It's all your fault. You caused me to turn out like this. I will absolutely not let you off. Prepare to die. As Ling Wenbin talked, he circulated all the profound energy within his body, as he launched his attack towards Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli utilized the agility dance steps which she just learnt, and easily evades his attack, and she gave a light smile as she turned her head. I say, Vice Principal Ling, I really didn't expected that you are still alive. I thought that since you suffered such a serious injury, you should have died long ago. Even if you didn't die, it has been 49 days since then, so you must have died of hunger. Although she was smiling as she said that, but the words which spewed out were filled with viciousness. Ling Wenbin's brows twitched, as he recalled his experience in the past few weeks, and he almost went insane on the spot. When he grabbed Huang Yueli at that time, he thought that victory was within his grasp, to be able to enter this early historical remains and monopolize the treasures inside. Perhaps he might experience a reversal of fortune and become soaring heaven's continent's top-rated expert. At the very least, he would be able to make a small fortune. For a practitioner who is at this age, this probably was his lifetime's last huge opportunity. Whoever knew that, just as he was about to attain victory, at the last juncture, Huang Yueli managed to turn the situation around. Not only wasn't he able to enter the Inheritance Tower, both his legs were also cut off, and furthermore, he suffered from the attacks of the external mechanisms outside the Inheritance Tower and he was heavily injured. Although he managed to save his life, but his cultivation had then dropped drastically by a large realm. Plus the fact that his 2 legs were crippled, he was considered as ruined. Ling Wenbin was scared and had thought of escaping, but the minute he reached the huge stone array, he discovered that the treasure map in his hands had been snatched away by Huang Yueli, so he had no way to get out of the huge stone array. This round, he was completely trapped here, no way to enter the high tower, and no way to leave. When he thought of the possibility that he might be confined in this place forever, or even becoming like skeletons like those ancient people in the huge stone array, to die of starvation alive, Ling Wenbin felt exceptionally desperate. Right now, he really had unspeakable regret. If he knew earlier, he would absolutely not covet the things which Bai Liu Feng left behind. Now, not only was he not able to gain a fortune, instead he became a half-dead cripple, not able to go anywhere at all. However, even if he had reached this step, Ling Wenbin wasn't resigned to die just yet, so using the last bit of food and water in his interspatial ring, he lasted till now. His heart still had a sliver of hope, although Huang Yueli entered the high tower, but if she didn't die, she would have to come out sooner or later. If he could last till Huang Yueli came out, killed her and snatched all the treasures and treasure map from her, then not only would he be able to take his revenge, he would still be able to gain the treasures from the inheritance tower. Ling Wenbin waited and waited for so many days that he himself wasn't sure of how long he had waited anymore. Just as his interspatial ring's food was about to be finished and he was going to become dry immediately, the bronze door to the inheritance tower suddenly flashed a golden ray. Huang Yueli was finally going to appear. Words could not be used to describe Ling Wenbin's joy and hatred. The only wish he had on his mind was for this little slut to die immediately. Furthermore, he wanted her to die a terrible and painful death. Then take all the treasures on her for himself. You can also listen on. Ling Wenbin stared intently on Huang Yueli as he gave an eerie laugh. Little slut, stop struggling. Do you think that saying a few words would distract me? Let me tell you, I'll absolutely not let you off today, and I will make you die pitifully. Oh, no, perhaps I should kill you, I should cut your legs off, and snatch away all your treasures, then tie you here to let you die of starvation. Heh heh heh. His laughter was especially terrifying. If anyone were to see him, they would probably feel that they had just seen a living ghost, or probably even more terrifying than a ghost. However, Huang Yueli merely shrugged her shoulders and there wasn't much changes in her expression. You're already so old, why do you say such vicious things? But since you're pretty pitiful, you want to die but not able to, it's just inhumane. I shall do a good deed and send you off. Looking for death. Ling Wenbin originally wanted to admire Huang Yueli's hopeless expression, but things didn't go according to his wish. He was so angry that he almost went insane, and he wasn't able to tolerate much further as he used all the profound energy in his entire body, throwing all his killer moves towards Huang Yueli. Huang Yueli calmly evaded his attacks easily, as a surging fire attributed profound energy was unleashed, directly charging towards Ling Wenbin. The present her, as compared to when she just entered the huge stone array, was no longer the same. From 3rd stage realm peak to the current 4th stage realm peak, she had completed the crossover to a large realm. Not only so, after the process of cleansing her meridians and widening her arteries, her physical body's toughness was now something which ordinary practitioners could not imagine. At the same time, her speed, strength, endurance and defense powers had also raised significantly. Even the profound energy which gather in her meridians and the speed of recovery had all increased by several times as compared to previously. Furthermore, she had just advanced successfully, and her drive was flourishing. Her entire body's profound energy was pure and dense, as though it was about to flow out in abundance. Not only that, this huge stone array was the spirit-gathering array which the sacred phoenix race specially set up, and the fire attributed profound energy inside was the most abundant. With the various elements adding up, when Huang Yueli struck, although it was just a fire ray flazing, but within 2 breaths' time, it had already rose into an eye-catching sea of fire. The raging flames occupied Ling Wenbin's entire view, as it covered the sky and earth, mountainous waves overturning the sea. Such powerful presence made Ling Wenbin totally stunned, unable to respond. He knew that he should evade, but under such oppression, he felt that he wasn't facing Huang Yueli, but a 9th stage realm top expert. There was no leeway and hope to struggle. It was until the fire sea had burnt his body when Ling Wenbin finally gave a terrifying shrill. No. Impossible. How could this be? He couldn't understood why, and couldn't possibly be resigned to it. How was it that when he faced Huang Yueli, he didn't had any single bit of resistance at all? It was clear that when the both of them entered the huge stone array, Huang Yueli could only escape right in front of him, and finally when she fell into his clutches, this lass's ability against his was like heaven and earth. Although later on he suffered heavy injuries, but a dead-starved camel was still bigger than a horse. His cultivation was still at 6th stage realm, as compared to the 3rd stage realm Huang Yueli, he still had an overwhelming advantage. Even if Huang Yueli had obtained more treasures in the tower, but surely it wasn't possible for her to gain the potential to defeat him in just slightly over a month. How could it be possible for him to be defeated in the hands of this wretched lass? You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.